Ethan Cross didn't flinch. He stood motionless, coffee cup steady, cheek burning where the drunk's palm had cracked against his skin. Across the room, Charlotte Bennett, billionaire defense executive worth $900 million, watched in stunned silence as the mechanic absorbed the humiliation without a word. But she saw something else. The stillness in his eyes wasn't surrender. It was control. The kind of control that came from killing men with bare hands. She had just found the ghost who knew how her brother died. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see how far this story travels. Now settle in, because what you're about to hear is a 2-hour journey of buried secrets, impossible choices, and one woman's refusal to let the truth stay dead. The glass towers of downtown Denver glittered like ice sculptures against the October sky, each one reflecting the cold ambition that built them. Charlotte Bennett stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of her 42nd floor corner office, phone pressed to her ear, patience wearing thin. "I don't care what the State Department says," she said, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from signing billion-dollar defense contracts before most people finished their morning coffee. "Find me everything on Ethan Cross. Employment records, tax filings, vehicle registrations, everything." The private investigator on the other end hesitated. "Ms. Bennett, I've already sent you what we've found. The man's practically a ghost. New identity established 3 years ago. Small auto repair shop in Ridge Hollow, Colorado. Population 800. Single father. Keeps to himself." "That's not enough. With respect, ma'am, if this is about your brother..." Charlotte's reflection in the window showed a woman who hadn't slept properly in 3 years. 34 years old, Harvard MBA, CEO of Bennett Defense Solutions at 29 when her father died suddenly. She'd navigated hostile board meetings, Pentagon negotiations, and congressional hearings without breaking a sweat. But this wasn't business. This was blood. "Andrew didn't just disappear," she said quietly. "Someone knows what happened. Ethan Cross was the last man in his unit, the last one who saw him alive. The military declared him missing, presumed dead. Do you know what presumed means? It means they don't actually know. It means my mother has been staring at a folded flag for 3 years while her son might still be breathing somewhere." Silence on the line. Charlotte turned from the window, her gaze falling on the photograph that sat on her desk. Andrew in his dress uniform, smiling that crooked grin that had charmed everyone from kindergarten teachers to 4-star generals. Her older brother by 2 years. The one who'd taught her to stand up to bullies in middle school, who'd talked her through panic attacks before college exams, who'd enlisted despite having a trust fund that could have bought him any future he wanted. "You'll have the additional information by tomorrow," the investigator finally said. "Tonight." "Ms. Bennett, tonight, or I'll find someone who can." She ended the call. Her assistant knocked softly before entering, tablet in hand. "Your 3 o'clock is here, the Pentagon liaison regarding the new contract." Charlotte didn't move. "Cancel it." What?" "Cancel everything for the next week. Clear my schedule." "Charlotte, the board meeting is Wednesday. The shareholders will survive without me for a few days." She grabbed her coat from the rack, her movements decisive. "I'm going to Colorado." "Now? It's already past 2. "Then I'd better get moving." The assistant's eyes widened. "This is about your brother, isn't it? Charlotte, it's been 3 years. Maybe it's time to..." "To what?" Charlotte turned, and something in her expression made the younger woman step back. "To let go? To move on? To accept that he's gone when nobody can prove it? Would you, if it were your brother?" The assistant looked down. "No, I wouldn't." "Then trust that I know what I'm doing." 40 minutes later, Charlotte was behind the wheel of her Range Rover, heading west on I-70 toward the mountains. Denver's skyline shrank in her rear-view mirror as the road began to climb, trading glass and steel for pine forests and granite peaks. The file sat on her passenger seat. Ethan Cross. Age 36, former Army, details classified. Honorable discharge 3 years prior. No criminal record. Owned Ridge Hollow Auto Repair. Single father to Lily Cross, age 7. Mother deceased 2 years before his discharge. But it was what wasn't in the file that interested Charlotte. No social media presence, no digital footprint before 3 years ago. No interviews, no photographs, no trace of his military service beyond the bare facts of enlistment and discharge. The man had erased himself. The question was why. The drive took 3 hours. The interstate gave way to state highways, then to 2-lane mountain roads that wound through valleys where cell service came and went like a stuttering heartbeat. Ridge Hollow appeared around a bend just as the sun began its descent behind the western peaks. A handful of buildings clustered along a main street that probably hadn't changed much in 50 years. Population sign, 847. Charlotte pulled into a gravel lot beside a diner called Millie's. Through the window, she could see maybe a dozen people scattered across red vinyl booths, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where strangers were noticed immediately. She needed to be smart about this. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and frying bacon. Conversations paused as she entered, heads turning with the casual curiosity of small-town radar. Charlotte ignored the attention, choosing a booth near the window with a clear view of the street. A waitress appeared almost immediately, mid-50s, name tag reading Deb, smile warm but eyes assessing. "Afternoon, hun. Passing through?" "Something like that." Charlotte returned the smile. "Coffee, please, black." "You got it." Deb pulled out an order pad. "Anything to eat?" "Pot roast's the special today." "Just coffee for now, thanks." As Deb walked away, Charlotte pulled out her phone, pretending to scroll while actually listening to the conversations around her. Small towns were information ecosystems. You just had to know how to tap in. 2 booths over, an older man in a John Deere cap was talking to his companion. "Told Ethan I'd have it done by Friday, but you know how that transmission job goes. Man's patient, though. Never rushes anybody." Charlotte's pulse quickened. "He's good people," the other man replied. "Lord knows he's had it rough, raising that little girl alone, keeping the shop running. But he never complains. Keeps to himself mostly. Can't blame him after what happened to Sarah. Terrible thing, cancer, and her so young." Charlotte filed the information away. Sarah, the deceased wife. Cancer, not combat. Deb returned with coffee. "Here you go, hun. You sure I can't get you anything else?" Charlotte took a sip, surprisingly good for a mountain diner. "Actually, I'm looking for an auto shop. Having some trouble with my transmission. Someone at the gas station mentioned Ridge Hollow Auto Repair." "Ethan's place?" Deb nodded. "Best mechanic in 3 counties. Shop's about a mile up Main Street past the post office. Can't miss it. Only building with a lift bay." "He good?" "The best. Honest too, which you don't always get. He'll tell you straight what needs fixing and what can wait." Deb's expression softened. "Been through a lot, that man. Lost his wife a few years back, raising his daughter by himself now. Little Lily, sweetest thing you ever saw." Charlotte kept her voice casual. "That's tough. Where do you move here from?" Something flickered in Deb's eyes. Not suspicion exactly, but awareness. "You know, I'm not rightly sure. Ethan doesn't talk much about before." She smiled, but it had cooled slightly. "Anything else I can get you?" Message received. Charlotte shook her head. "I'm good. Thanks." She nursed her coffee for another 20 minutes, watching the street as the October afternoon light turned golden. Pickup trucks rolled past. A school bus stopped to let off a handful of kids. Normal, quiet. The kind of place where a man could disappear if he wanted to. Finally, Charlotte paid her bill and drove up Main Street. Ridge Hollow Auto Repair sat at the edge of town, a cement block building with 2 service bays and a small office. A wooden sign hung above the entrance, simple lettering, E-Cross Proprietor. The overhead door on one bay was open. Inside, a man in grease-stained coveralls worked beneath the raised hood of an old Ford pickup. He didn't look up as Charlotte pulled into the lot. She sat in her Range Rover for a long moment, studying him. Tall, maybe 6'2". Broad shoulders, lean build, dark hair showing hints of gray at the temples. Strong hands that moved with practiced efficiency as he checked fluid levels. Nothing about him screamed military, but Charlotte had grown up around soldiers. She knew how to spot the signs. The economy of movement. The awareness that came through in the angle of his shoulders. The way he positioned himself with clear sightlines to the entrance. The scars on his forearms, not garage accidents, but something else. This was him. This was Spectre. Charlotte stepped out of the Range Rover. Her heels clicked on the concrete as she approached. "Excuse me. Are you Ethan Cross?" He straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag. When he turned, Charlotte found herself looking into gray eyes that held the kind of weariness she'd only seen in men who'd been to war. "That's me." His voice was quiet, controlled. "Something I can help you with?" Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes, the careful blankness of his expression. He looked like a man who'd gotten very good at showing nothing. "My name is Charlotte Bennett. I was hoping you might have time to look at my transmission. I've been having some trouble." "Bennett." He said the name slowly, those gray eyes studying her face with sudden intensity. "Charlotte Bennett from Denver?" Her pulse jumped. "You know who I am?" It wasn't a question. Ethan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I know who you are." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The autumn breeze moved through the open bay, carrying the smell of pine from the mountains. "Then you know why I'm here," Charlotte said quietly. "Your transmission's fine." Ethan turned back to the Ford. "You should head back to Denver before dark. Roads get dangerous in the mountains this time of year. I'm not leaving until we talk." "Nothing to talk about. My brother is dead." The words came flat, final. "You got the flag. You got the condolence letter. That's all there is." Charlotte moved closer. "They never found his body." "They didn't find a lot of bodies." Ethan didn't look at her. "Doesn't change the outcome." "How do you know?" "I was there." "Then tell me what happened." His hand stilled on the engine. "Lady, you don't want those details." "Don't tell me what I want. He was my brother. My only brother. And I deserve to know what happened to him." Ethan finally turned, and the look in his eyes made Charlotte's breath catch. This wasn't just weariness. This was something deeper. Something that had carved itself into him and refused to let go. "You deserve peace," he said quietly. "Not nightmares. Go home, Miss Bennett. Let him rest." "How can I let him rest when I don't know if he's dead?" The question hung between them like a guillotine blade. Before Ethan could respond, a voice called out from behind them. "Daddy!" They both turned. A little girl came running across the lot. 7 years old, pigtails bouncing, backpack nearly as big as she was. She had her father's gray eyes, but a brightness he'd lost somewhere along the way. "Hey, Peanut!" Ethan's entire demeanor shifted as he crouched down. The careful blankness vanished, replaced by something genuine. "How was school?" "Mrs. Henderson said my book report was really good, and I got a gold star in math." She thrust a paper toward him, beaming. "That's my girl." He studied the worksheet with exaggerated seriousness. "Perfect score. I'm impressed." "Can we get ice cream? It's almost dinner time." "Please?" "We'll see." He glanced up at Charlotte, his expression shuddering again. "I need to close up. You should go." But Lily had noticed her now. "Who's that?" "Just someone passing through, sweetheart." "Hi." Lily waved, friendly and open in the way only children could be. "I'm Lily. What's your name?" Charlotte found herself smiling despite everything. "Charlotte. It's nice to meet you, Lily. Are you getting your car fixed? Daddy's really good at fixing cars." "I'm sure he is." "Lily, go wash your hands in the office," Ethan said. "I'll be right there." The girl hesitated, looking between them with a child's uncanny perception that something was wrong, but she nodded and skipped toward the small office building. When she was gone, Ethan stood. "Whatever you're looking for, you won't find it here. You were the last person to see Andrew alive. That I know of." "What does that mean?" "It means war is chaos, Miss Bennett. People get separated. Communication breaks down. I saw him go one direction under heavy fire. I went another. By the time anyone made it back to extract casualties, he wasn't there. That's all I know." "You expect me to believe you spent 3 years in Delta Force with my brother, and that's all you can tell me?" Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "I never said I was Delta." "You didn't have to." Charlotte stepped closer. "I've spent 2 years tracking you down. I know you served with Andrew. I know you were part of his unit. I know you disappeared right after the mission where he went missing, and I know you're hiding something. I'm not hiding anything except myself, and I'd appreciate it if you'd respect that. Why? What are you running from? This conversation. He moved past her toward the office. Shop's closed. You need to leave. Ethan, he stopped, shoulders tensing. Don't come back here. Don't dig into my life. And don't convince yourself that finding me will bring your brother home. Some doors stay closed for a reason. Then he was gone, disappearing into the office where his daughter waited. Charlotte stood in the empty garage bay, frustration and determination warring in her chest. She'd found him. After 2 years of dead ends and classified files and investigative reports that went nowhere, she'd finally found the man who could tell her what happened, and he'd just shut the door in her face. She walked back to her Range Rover, mind racing. The smart move would be to go back to Denver, hire a lawyer, use her connections to force him to talk, subpoena his records, apply pressure through official channels. But something told her that wouldn't work. Ethan Cross wasn't afraid of lawyers or pressure. He was afraid of something else entirely. Charlotte checked her phone. 1 missed call from her assistant. 3 emails from the Pentagon liaison. A text from her mother asking if she was okay. She ignored all of them and drove back to Millie's diner. The dinner crowd had arrived, families, retirees, what looked like a few ranch hands still in dusty work clothes. Charlotte took the same booth as before and ordered the pot roast special, settling in to think. Deb refilled her coffee. Didn't expect to see you back. Transmission get fixed? He was busy. Ethan usually is. Good with his hands, that man. Deb paused. You're staying in town? For a while. Only motel's the Mountain View, about 10 miles back toward the interstate. Clean enough, if you don't mind dated decor. Thanks. As Deb walked away, Charlotte heard the diner door open behind her. She glanced up reflexively and froze. 3 men had entered. Mid-20s to early 30s, wearing the kind of cocky expressions that came from never being told no. The one in front was big, probably 6'4", with a neck like a tree trunk and eyes that had already found Charlotte. Well, well, he said loudly. What do we have here? The diner went quiet. Charlotte kept her expression neutral, returning her attention to her coffee. She'd dealt with aggressive men before. In boardrooms, they came with law degrees and expense accounts. Here, they just came. I'm talking to you, honey. The big one walked over, his friends flanking him. You lost? I'm fine, thanks. Don't look fine, look lonely. He slid into the booth across from her, uninvited. His breath smelled like beer and worse decisions. Name's Derek. These are my boys, Cody and Travis. We run most of the construction work around here. Charlotte met his eyes. Good for you. Now please leave. Derek grinned. Feisty, I like that. But you should know, this is a small town. We're just being friendly. I'm not interested in friendly. Course you are. Pretty thing like you, all alone in the mountains. His hand moved across the table toward hers. Let us buy you a drink. Show you around. Charlotte didn't move. Take your hand off the table before I break your fingers. The threat was delivered in the same calm tone she used in board meetings. Cold, precise, utterly serious. Derek's grin widened. You got a mouth on you. That's... She said no. The new voice came from behind them. Charlotte's eyes shifted past Derek to see Ethan Cross standing 3 feet away, still in his work coveralls, Lily's small hand in his. Derek didn't turn. This ain't your business, mechanic. You're bothering a customer. That makes it my business. Customer? Derek laughed. She's not getting her car fixed. She's just sitting here pretending she belongs. Leave her alone, Derek. Now Derek stood, and Charlotte realized the man was even bigger than she'd thought. He had at least 4 inches and 50 pounds on Ethan. Or what? You gonna make me? Lily tugged on her father's hand. Daddy, can we go? Ethan's voice gentled for his daughter. In a minute, Peanut. Then to Derek, walk away. Last warning. Warning? Derek's hand shot out, shoving Ethan hard in the chest. What happened next occurred so fast, Charlotte almost missed it. Ethan didn't stumble. He absorbed the shove, his body shifting slightly, weight redistributing. For 1 heartbeat, he was perfectly still. Then Derek swung. It was a wild haymaker, fueled by alcohol and pride. Ethan moved, Not dramatically, not with wasted motion. He simply wasn't where Derek's fist was going. He shifted 6 inches to the left, letting the punch sail past his face. Then his hand shot up, fast, controlled, and caught Derek's wrist mid-extension. The wrist lock was textbook, clinical. Ethan rotated Derek's arm, applying pressure at exactly the right angle, and the bigger man went down to his knees with a gasp of pain. "Daddy!" Lily's voice was frightened now. Cody and Travis moved forward, but Ethan's eyes snapped to them, and whatever they saw there made them stop dead. "Don't," Ethan said quietly. They didn't. Ethan held Derek there for 3 seconds, 4, long enough to make the point. Then he released the wrist and stepped back. Derek stumbled to his feet, face red, cradling his arm. "You son of a—" The slap came from nowhere. Derek's hand cracked across Ethan's face with enough force to snap his head to the side. The sound echoed through the silent diner like a thunderclap. Lily gasped. Charlotte was already half out of her booth. But Ethan didn't react. He stood there, cheek reddening, coffee cup still steady in his other hand. His eyes were empty, calm, the kind of calm that came from places Charlotte didn't want to imagine. "Feel better?" he asked Derek. The bigger man blinked, suddenly uncertain. Whatever he'd expected, rage, retaliation, fear, he wasn't getting it. "Get out of my diner," Deb called from behind the counter. "All 3 of you, now." Derek pointed at Ethan. "This isn't over." "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "It is." Something in his voice made Derek flinch. He backed away, his friends following, and the 3 of them stumbled out into the parking lot. The diner stayed silent. Ethan crouched down, bringing himself to Lily's eye level. "You okay, Peanut?" She nodded, wide-eyed. "Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine." He touched her hair gently. "Let's get you that ice cream, okay? Then home." "Okay." As Ethan stood, his eyes found Charlotte's across the diner. For just a moment, she saw past the careful blankness, saw the man underneath, the soldier, the protector, the weapon who'd learned to live as a mechanic. Then the moment passed, and he was turning away, leading his daughter toward the counter to order. Charlotte sat back down slowly, her pot roast forgotten. She'd watched Ethan Cross handle that situation with the efficiency of someone who'd done far worse to far more dangerous men. The wrist lock, the threat assessment, the absolute control even after being humiliated. That wasn't training, that was conditioning. And suddenly, Charlotte understood why he'd disappeared, why he'd buried himself in this small mountain town, why he wanted her to leave. Ethan Cross wasn't hiding from the military or the government or some external threat. He was hiding from himself, from whoever he'd been before, from the things he'd done, from the man called Spectre who'd operated in shadows and done things that couldn't be undone. But Charlotte had just seen something else. When Lily had been frightened, when the little girl had called out to him, Ethan had gentled instantly. The dangerous man had vanished, replaced by a father who would do anything to protect his child. That meant he could still feel, he could still care, which meant he could still be reached. Charlotte pulled out her phone and typed a message to her assistant. "Book me at the Mountain View Motel." Indefinitely. She wasn't going anywhere. Not until she had answers. Not until she knew what happened to her brother. And not until she understood what had broken Ethan Cross so badly that he'd rather take a slap in front of his daughter than fight back. Outside, the sun dipped behind the mountains, and Ridge Hollow settled into evening. Streetlights flickered on. Families headed home, the kind of normalcy Ethan had built here brick by careful brick. Charlotte watched him through the window as he walked Lily to his truck, an old Silverado with primer spots and a dent in the tailgate. The little girl was eating ice cream, chattering away, and Ethan listened with the patient attention of a man who'd learned that these moments mattered more than anything else. He'd been a ghost for 3 years. But ghosts could be brought back. Charlotte finished her coffee and paid her bill, leaving a generous tip for Deb. As she walked to her Range Rover, her phone buzzed. The private investigator. New information on Ethan Cross. Classified unit records partially unsealed by FOIA request. Sending encrypted file now. Charlotte opened the attachment in her car. Line after line of redacted text. Mission dates blacked out. Unit designations hidden. But buried in the fragments were names. Captain Andrew Bennett, Sergeant First Class Marcus Rivera, Staff Sergeant David Chen, Master Sergeant Ethan Cross, call sign Spectre, Specialized Operations, Close Protection, Direct Action, Counterterrorism. All the sanitized language that meant these men killed people the government wanted dead. The last mission entry was dated 3 years and 2 months ago. Location redacted, mission objective redacted. Outcome, operation terminated, casualties. But in the notes section, one line wasn't fully blacked out. Bennett, A. Status, missing. Last known position, grid coordinates, redacted. Cross, extracted with civilians, recommended for commendation. Charlotte read it 3 times. Ethan had been recommended for a commendation, for the same mission where Andrew disappeared, which meant he'd done something extraordinary, something that saved lives. But if he was a hero, why did he look like a man haunted by failure? Charlotte started the Range Rover and headed toward the Mountain View Motel. Tomorrow, she'd try again. She'd find a way past Ethan's walls. She'd learn what really happened on that mission. And she'd bring her brother home. Or at least, she'd bring home the truth. Because 3 years of not knowing had broken her mother. 3 years of empty holidays and unanswered prayers and grief that couldn't properly mourn because there was no body to bury. Charlotte couldn't fix the past, but she could damn well illuminate it, even if it meant tearing down the fragile peace Ethan Cross had built in these mountains, even if it meant forcing a broken man to remember things he'd spent 3 years trying to forget. Some truths were worth the cost, and Andrew Bennett, soldier, brother, son, deserved better than presumed. He deserved certainty. One way or another, the Mountain View Motel lived down to its name. Dated decor didn't begin to cover it. Charlotte sat on a bed that sagged in the middle, beneath a landscape painting that looked like it had been purchased at a yard sale in 1987, and stared at her laptop screen. The encrypted file from the investigator glowed in the dim lamplight. She'd read it 6 times now, memorizing every visible word between the redactions, trying to piece together a story from fragments. Her phone buzzed. Mom. Charlotte hesitated, then answered. Hi, Mom. Where are you? Eleanor Bennett's voice carried that particular quality of worry that had become permanent 3 years ago. Your assistant said you canceled everything and left town. I'm in Colorado, following a lead. Silence. Then, Charlotte, sweetheart, we've been through this. The leads never go anywhere. This one's different. They're always different, and they always end the same way, with you exhausted and disappointed, and me terrified that I'm going to lose both my children to this obsession. Charlotte closed her eyes. It's not an obsession, Mom. It's hope. Hope is what you feel when there's a reasonable chance of success. What you're doing is, Eleanor's voice cracked. I can't watch you destroy yourself trying to find him. I can't. I found someone who was there, someone who saw him last. The silence stretched longer this time. When Eleanor spoke again, her voice was smaller. What did they say? Nothing yet, but I'm not leaving until they do. Charlotte, I have to know, Mom. Don't you want to know? Of course I want to know. The words came sharp, raw. I want to know if my son is dead or alive. I want to know if he suffered. I want to know if he thought about us at the end. I want to know everything, but wanting doesn't make it possible, and hunting ghosts won't bring him back. What if he's not dead? Eleanor's exhale was shaky. Then he would have come home. Unless he couldn't. Charlotte, please, come back to Denver. Come have dinner with me. Let's talk about this with clear heads. I'll call you tomorrow, Charlotte said gently. I love you. She ended the call before her mother could argue further. The room felt smaller suddenly. Charlotte stood, grabbed her coat, and headed outside. The October night had turned cold, stars sharp overhead in a way they never were in Denver. She could hear the distant rush of the river that ran along the valley floor. Her mother was wrong about one thing. This wasn't an obsession. It was a debt. Andrew had been the one who believed in her when their father dismissed her business ideas as frivolous. Andrew had been the one who convinced the board to give her a chance after Dad's heart attack. He'd always seen her as capable when everyone else saw her as decorative. And when he'd enlisted, despite having every reason not to, Charlotte had supported him, told him she understood, promised she'd take care of Mom and the business while he was gone. She'd kept that promise, but she'd failed to bring him home. Charlotte walked to her Range Rover and drove back through Ridge Hollow. Main Street was dark except for a few streetlights and the neon sign of a bar called the Timber Lodge. A handful of pickups sat in the gravel lot. She kept driving. Past the auto shop, closed now, dark. Past the elementary school where Lily probably spent her days. Past a small park with swing sets and a baseball diamond. Finally, at the edge of town, she found what she was looking for. A modest two-story house with peeling paint and a porch light that illuminated a truck in the driveway. Ethan's truck. Charlotte parked a block away and watched. Through the downstairs window, she could see movement. Ethan appeared briefly, then Lily in pajamas. The little girl was laughing, holding up a book. Ethan took it and sat down on what looked like a couch. Story time. Charlotte watched as he read to his daughter, watched as Lily's head eventually drooped against his shoulder, watched as he carried her upstairs, gentle, careful, the way fathers did when they loved more than they feared. 20 minutes later, the lights went out. Charlotte sat in the darkness, engine off, and wondered what she was doing. Stalking a man who clearly wanted nothing to do with her, violating his privacy, convincing herself this was justified because she needed answers. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant. Board is asking questions. CFO wants to know when you'll be back. Charlotte typed, when I'm done. She drove back to the motel and barely slept. Morning came cold and bright. Charlotte showered, dressed in jeans and a sweater, her concession to mountain casual, and headed to Millie's for breakfast. The diner was busier than yesterday, filled with what looked like regulars who had their usual tables and usual orders. Deb appeared with coffee before Charlotte even sat down. Morning. Sleep okay? Well enough. Charlotte slid into a booth. What's good for breakfast? Everything, but the biscuits and gravy will change your life. Sold. As Deb walked away, Charlotte heard a truck pull up outside. Through the window, she saw Ethan's Silverado. He climbed out, then opened the back door for Lily. The little girl bounded toward the diner entrance, pigtails swinging. Charlotte's pulse quickened. The door opened and Lily rushed in, heading straight for the counter. Good morning, Miss Deb. Morning, sweetheart. Your usual? Yes, please, and Daddy wants black coffee and wheat toast, I know. Deb smiled as Ethan entered behind his daughter. You two are predictable. Predictable is good, Ethan said quietly. Then his eyes found Charlotte. His expression didn't change, but something tightened around his mouth. He guided Lily toward a booth on the opposite side of the diner, pointedly not acknowledging Charlotte's presence. Lily, however, had no such reservations. Daddy, look, it's the nice lady from yesterday. I see her, Peanut. Eat your breakfast. But Lily was already waving enthusiastically. Hi, Charlotte. Charlotte waved back, unable to help smiling. Hi, Lily. The little girl tugged on her father's sleeve. Can she sit with us? She's busy, sweetheart. She doesn't look busy. Lily, please? She seems lonely. Ethan's jaw tightened. For a moment, Charlotte thought he might actually refuse his daughter, but then Lily deployed the weapon only 7-year-olds possessed, wide, hopeful eyes that could break through reinforced steel. Ethan exhaled slowly. Fine, go ask her. Lily practically bounced out of the booth and ran over to Charlotte. Would you like to have breakfast with us? Daddy says it's okay. Charlotte glanced at Ethan. He looked like a man facing a firing squad. But he nodded, once, barely. I'd love to, Charlotte said. She followed Lily back to their booth, sliding in across from Ethan. Up close in daylight, she could see the faint bruise on his cheekbone from yesterday's slap. He'd covered it with a layer of foundation, subtle but visible to someone looking. He was hiding it from his daughter. So what brings you to Ridge Hollow? Lily asked cheerfully. Are you on vacation? Something like that, Charlotte said. I'm visiting from Denver. Denver? That's a big city. Do you like it? Most of the time. I've never been to a big city. Daddy says maybe we'll go someday. Lily took a bite of her pancakes. Do they have mountains in Denver? You can see them from the city, but they're not as close as here. I like the mountains. They make me feel safe. Lily glanced at her father. Daddy says mountains are good at keeping secrets. Something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Eat your breakfast, Peanut. Deb arrived with Charlotte's biscuits and gravy, along with Ethan's coffee and toast. "Here you go, folks. Anything else?" "We're good," Ethan said. As Deb left, an uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Lily filled it by chattering about school, her teacher, a spelling test she had on Friday. Charlotte listened, occasionally asking questions, while Ethan sat silent as stone. Finally, Lily excused herself to use the bathroom. The moment she was gone, Ethan leaned forward. "What do you want from me?" "The truth." "I told you the truth." "You told me a version of it. There's more." "There's always more." "Doesn't mean you need to hear it." Charlotte kept her voice low. "I read your file, or what's left of it after redactions. You were recommended for a commendation for the same mission where my brother disappeared." Ethan's expression didn't change. "Files lie." "Do they? Or are you lying to yourself because it's easier than remembering?" "You don't know anything about what's easy." "You're right. I don't." Charlotte met his gaze steadily. "I've never been to war. Never killed anyone. Never watched friends die. But I have spent 3 years watching my mother slowly break apart from not knowing if her son is alive or dead. I've seen her light candles on holidays for a ghost. I've held her while she cried because she can't mourn properly without a body. So maybe I don't know your pain, but I sure as hell know mine." Ethan looked away. "I'm sorry for your loss." "It's not a loss if there's no proof." "Ms. Bennett, Charlotte," he exhaled. "Charlotte. You need to understand something. The things that happened on that mission, they're classified for reasons. Not just bureaucratic ass covering. Real reasons. National security reasons." "I don't care about national security. I care about my brother." "And I care about my daughter. About giving her a normal life. About not dragging the past into her present." His voice dropped even lower. "You showing up here threatens that." "I'm not trying to threaten anything. I just want answers. And if those answers destroy what I've built, if they put Lily in danger—" Charlotte blinked. "Danger? From what?" "From people who might wonder why someone's asking questions about classified operations. From attention I've spent 3 years avoiding. From—" He stopped as Lily emerged from the bathroom hallway. The little girl climbed back into the booth, oblivious to the tension. "What are you talking about?" "Boring adult stuff," Ethan said, his tone shifting instantly. "You ready to go? We need to open the shop. Can Charlotte come see the shop? I want to show her my art corner." "She's busy, sweetheart." "Actually," Charlotte said, "I'd love to see it." Ethan's eyes promised retribution, but Lily was already gathering her backpack. "Yay, you're gonna love it. Daddy made me a special place with all my art supplies and everything." 10 minutes later, Charlotte followed Ethan's truck back to Ridge Hollow Auto Repair. Inside the shop, she could see the professional side. Lift bays, tool chests, diagnostic equipment that looked surprisingly high-tech for a small-town garage. But in the corner of the office, exactly as Lily had promised, sat a child-sized desk with bins of crayons, markers, and colored pencils. Drawings covered the wall: houses, families, mountains, flowers. A little sanctuary of innocence in a workspace built for fixing broken things. "See?" Lily beamed. "Daddy says I'm going to be a famous artist someday." "I believe it," Charlotte said sincerely. Ethan stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Lily, why don't you work on your homework while I talk to Charlotte?" "But—" "Please, Peanut. I'll come check on you in a few minutes." Lily sighed dramatically but settled at her desk. Ethan gestured for Charlotte to follow him outside. In the cold morning air, he turned to face her. "This needs to stop." "I can't." "You can. You just won't." "What would you do?" Charlotte challenged. "If it was Lily missing? If someone told you to just accept it and move on? Would you?" The question hit like a physical blow. Ethan's face went carefully blank. "That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but I need answers and you have them. What I have are memories that won't bring your brother back." "Then give me closure. Give me something to tell my mother besides he's probably dead. Give me a reason to stop searching." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You want closure? Fine. Your brother was a good soldier, a good man. He made a choice that saved lives. It cost him his own. That's the truth. That's all the truth there is." "What choice?" "The kind you don't second guess when bullets are flying." That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Charlotte stepped closer. I watched you yesterday, in the diner, when that man slapped you. You didn't fight back. So? So a man with your training could have put him down in seconds, but you didn't, because of Lily. Because you didn't want her to see that side of you. Charlotte's voice softened. I understand that. I respect it. But that same control, that same discipline, you can use it to tell me what happened, without falling apart, without endangering anyone. You think discipline is what keeps the nightmares away? Ethan's laugh was bitter. Lady, discipline is what gets you through breakfast without screaming. It's what lets you read bedtime stories instead of checking corners for hostiles. It's what keeps you human when every instinct you trained for years says otherwise. Then be human with me. Please. Just tell me what happened to Andrew. Before Ethan could respond, a car pulled into the lot. An older woman with a worn Subaru. Mr. Cross? I'm having trouble with my starter again. Ethan's expression shifted immediately, professional, focused. I'll take a look, Mrs. Patterson. Give me just a minute. He turned back to Charlotte. I have work, customers, a life that doesn't include dissecting the worst day of my existence. You need to accept that and move on. I'll be at the diner, Charlotte said. When you're ready to talk, really talk, I'll be there. She walked to her Range Rover and drove back to Millie's. The lunch crowd hadn't arrived yet. Charlotte ordered coffee and opened her laptop, pulling up everything she could find about the region where Andrew had disappeared. 3 years ago. Classified location, but she could narrow it down based on troop movements reported in the news. Somewhere in the Middle East, operations against insurgent forces, high-value target missions. Her phone rang. The investigator. I've got something, he said without preamble. Cross's military records are sealed tight, but I found discharge paperwork. Medical separation, PTSD, listed as service-connected disability. Charlotte's chest tightened. How bad? Bad enough that the VA rated him 70% disabled. He's receiving monthly compensation. Also found records of therapy sessions at the VA hospital in Grand Junction for the first 18 months after discharge. Then they stopped. He stopped going. Looks like it. Last session was about 1.5 years ago. Can you get the therapy notes? Not legally. HIPAA protections are ironclad, but... He paused. I can tell you that his therapist submitted a report recommending continued treatment. It was flagged as high priority. Whatever Cross went through, it wasn't standard combat stress. Charlotte thanked him and ended the call. PTSD. Severe enough for medical discharge, therapy that stopped before completion. Ethan wasn't just hiding from his past. He was barely holding himself together, and she was asking him to rip open wounds that hadn't healed. The moral weight of it settled on her shoulders like lead. Was she right to push? Was finding out what happened to Andrew worth destroying whatever fragile peace Ethan had managed to build? Her phone buzzed. Mom again. Charlotte let it go to voicemail. She sat in the diner for 3 hours, nursing coffee and pretending to work on her laptop while actually watching the street, watching for Ethan's truck, wondering if he'd come, knowing he probably wouldn't. At 2 o'clock, the diner door opened. But it wasn't Ethan. It was Derek, the man from yesterday, along with his 2 friends. They spotted Charlotte immediately, and Derek's face split into a nasty grin. Well, look who it is, Denver princess still slumming it in our little town. Charlotte kept her expression neutral. Not interested, Derek. That's not very friendly. He slid into the booth across from her, his friends blocking the exit. After all the trouble you caused yesterday, I think you owe me an apology. I don't owe you anything. See, that's where you're wrong. You embarrassed me in front of the whole town, made me look weak. Can't have that. Deb appeared from behind the counter. Derek, I told you yesterday, you're not welcome here anymore. I'm just having a conversation with the lady. That legal, isn't it? The lady wants you to leave, Charlotte said firmly. Derek's hand shot across the table, grabbing her wrist. I'll leave when I'm ready. The grip was tight, meant to intimidate. Charlotte didn't flinch. She dealt with worse in hostile takeovers and negotiation rooms. Let go, she said quietly. Now. Or what? You gonna call your mechanic boyfriend? He's not here to save you this time. Charlotte's other hand moved with practiced speed. She'd taken self-defense courses for years. She twisted her wrist against Derek's thumb, the weakest point in his grip, and pulled free. At the same time, her heel came down hard on his instep. Derek yelped and jerked back. "Touch me again," Charlotte said, her voice ice cold, "and I'll have you arrested for assault. I've got a room full of witnesses and more lawyers than you have brain cells. Test me." Derek's face flushed red. "You bitch! That's enough." The new voice came from the diner entrance. But this time, it wasn't Ethan. It was a sheriff's deputy, mid-40s, weathered face, badge reading Deputy Marshal Carter. "Derek, you and your boys need to clear out, now. We're just talking. I can see what you're doing, and I'm telling you to leave before I run you in for harassment." Derek stood slowly, trying to salvage his dignity. "This town's getting too uppity for its own good." "Out," Carter said flatly. The three men shuffled out, Derek shooting Charlotte one last venomous look before the door closed behind them. Carter approached Charlotte's booth. "You okay, ma'am?" "I'm fine, thank you. You're the one staying at the Mountain View, right? From Denver? Word travels fast." "Small town." Carter's expression was sympathetic. "Derek's usually more talk than action, but he's got a mean streak when he's been drinking. You might want to be careful." "I can handle myself." "I'm sure you can, but it might be wise to stay out of the timber lodge after dark. That's where he and his crew like to congregate." Carter tipped his hat. "Welcome to Ridge Hollow, Ms. Bennett." He left before Charlotte could ask how he knew her name. Deb refilled her coffee. "Don't mind Derek, he's been like that since high school. Peaked early, stayed mean. He seems to have a problem with Ethan. Derek's got a problem with anyone who doesn't kiss his boots. Ethan just doesn't intimidate easy." Deb paused. "You know, if you're looking to talk to Ethan more, you might have better luck at the park. He takes Lily there after work most days, around 5:30. Charlotte met her eyes. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I've known Ethan for 3 years, and I've never seen him talk to anyone the way he talked to you yesterday morning. Like someone who recognized him for who he really is, not just the quiet mechanic." Deb's voice softened. "That man carries weight nobody should have to carry alone. Maybe you're the person who can help him put it down. Or maybe I'll make it worse. Maybe. But doing nothing is its own kind of harm." At 5:15, Charlotte parked near the small park at the edge of town. A few mothers watched children on the playground equipment. An older man walked a dog. Normal evening routines. At 5:32, Ethan's truck pulled into the lot. Lily jumped out, already running toward the swings. Ethan followed more slowly, hands in his jacket pockets, scanning the park with the kind of awareness that never fully turned off. His eyes found Charlotte immediately. She was sitting on a bench about 30 yards away, not approaching, not hiding, just present. Ethan's jaw tightened. He said something to Lily, who nodded and ran off to play with another girl her age. Then he walked over to Charlotte's bench. "You're persistent," he said. "So I've been told." He sat down, keeping space between them, watching Lily on the swings. "This town isn't used to people like you." "People like me?" "Rich, powerful, used to getting what you want." Charlotte smiled without humor. "Money doesn't buy everything. I've learned that the hard way." They sat in silence for a moment, then Ethan spoke, his voice low. "I dream about that day sometimes. The mission. It's always the same dream. I'm trying to reach him, but I can't move fast enough. The distance keeps growing, and I wake up knowing I failed." Charlotte's breath caught. "You didn't fail. How would you know?" "Because you're here. You survived. That means you did what you were supposed to do." "Surviving isn't the same as succeeding, isn't it?" Ethan turned to look at her. "Your brother made a choice. He split the team, sent me with civilians who needed evacuation while he stayed behind to draw fire. It was the right tactical decision. It saved lives. But it also meant I wasn't there when he needed backup. That was his choice, not yours. Doesn't make it easier to live with." Charlotte watched Lily playing, saw the little girl's uninhibited joy. "Is that why you're here? Hiding in the mountains? Punishing yourself?" "I'm not punishing myself. I'm protecting my daughter." "From what?" Ethan was quiet for a long time. Then, "From me. From what I was." From the possibility that one day I'll stop being able to control it and she'll see the monster instead of the father. The raw honesty of it struck Charlotte silent. You asked why I didn't fight back yesterday, Ethan continued. It's because I know what happens when I start. It doesn't stop easy. The training, the conditioning, it doesn't go away just because you want it to. And Lily deserves better than a father who's one bad moment away from becoming someone she's afraid of. You're not a monster. You don't know that. I've seen monsters. In boardrooms, in courtrooms, in executive suites. They don't worry about scaring their children. They don't build art corners in their workshops. They don't take slaps in diners to avoid violence. Charlotte's voice was firm. You're a good man carrying a heavy burden. That's different. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression shifted. Not opening exactly, but softening. What do you want from me, Charlotte? Really? I want to know what happened to Andrew. Every detail you can remember. I want to understand his last moments. And then, she paused, then I want to figure out if there's any chance he's still alive. He's not. How do you know? Because men don't survive what we went through and stay missing for 3 years. If he was alive, he would have found a way home. Unless he couldn't. Ethan shook his head. You're chasing ghosts. Maybe. But I need to chase them to the end. I need to know for certain. Can you understand that? He watched his daughter for a long moment. Then quietly, yeah, I can understand that. Will you help me? I don't know if I can. Can't or won't? Both. Ethan stood. I need to think about this. About what telling you everything might cost. Not just me, Lily too. If the wrong people start asking questions, what wrong people? The kind who don't like old operations being examined too closely. He started walking back toward Lily, then stopped. Give me a few days. Let me figure out what I can tell you that won't put my daughter at risk. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might decide the answer is nothing. But as he walked away, Charlotte felt something shift. He hadn't said no. He was considering it. That was more than she'd had this morning. She watched him scoop Lily up onto his shoulders, watched the little girl's delighted laughter echo across the park, watched them walk back to his truck together. A father and daughter against the world. And Charlotte made a silent promise. Whatever truth Ethan shared, she would protect them both, because some debts transcended blood. Some debts were paid in trust. 3 days passed like slow water over stone. Charlotte spent them learning the rhythm of Ridge Hollow. She discovered that the hardware store opened at 7, but the owner didn't actually show up until 7:30. That the best cell reception in town was outside the post office. That Deb's husband ran the gas station and her daughter was Lily's second-grade teacher. She also learned that small towns had long memories and protective instincts. On the second day, Deputy Carter stopped by her table at Millie's with a polite smile and a pointed question. Ms. Bennett, how long are you planning to stay in Ridge Hollow? As long as it takes, Charlotte said. Takes to do what exactly? Have a conversation. Carter's smile didn't waver. See, the thing is, when outsiders come asking questions about folks who prefer their privacy, it makes people nervous. And when people get nervous, they tend to call me. I'm not breaking any laws. No, ma'am, you're not. But this is a small community. We look after our own. Ethan Cross has been through enough without someone digging up his past. Charlotte met his gaze steadily. I'm not trying to hurt him. Maybe not intentionally, but hurt comes in different forms. Carter tipped his hat. Just something to think about. He left, and Charlotte sat there wondering how much the deputy actually knew. Whether Ethan had friends in this town who would close ranks if pressed. Whether she was making enemies without even realizing it. That evening, she tried calling her mother back. Eleanor answered on the first ring. Charlotte, thank heaven, I've been worried sick. I'm fine, Mom. Still in Colorado. Still chasing shadows, you mean? Eleanor's voice was tired. Your CFO called me. The board is getting restless. They can wait. Can they? You're CEO of a billion-dollar company. You can't just disappear indefinitely. I'm not disappearing. I'm working remotely. You're obsessing, again. Eleanor paused. Sweetheart, I know you think you're doing this for me, for Andrew, But what if you're really doing it for yourself? What if you can't let go because that would mean accepting he's gone? The question hit harder than Charlotte expected. Is that what you think? I think grief makes us desperate, makes us believe things that aren't true because the truth is unbearable. I think my daughter has spent 3 years trying to fix something that can't be fixed, and I'm terrified of what it's costing her. Charlotte closed her eyes. I found someone who was there, Mom. Someone who saw him last. If there's even a chance— There isn't, Eleanor said quietly. I've accepted that. You need to accept it too. I can't. Then you'll spend the rest of your life running towards something that doesn't exist, and I'll have lost both my children. Eleanor's voice broke. Please come home. Charlotte hung up feeling hollowed out. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe this was obsession disguised as hope. Maybe she was the one who couldn't let go, and she was using Andrew's memory to justify it. But she'd come this far. She had to see it through. On the 4th morning, Charlotte was finishing breakfast at Millie's when Ethan's truck pulled up outside. He didn't bring Lily this time. He came alone, walking into the diner with the deliberate movements of a man who'd made a difficult decision. He slid into the booth across from her. I'll tell you what happened, but not here. Charlotte's heart jumped. Where? My place. Tonight. After Lily's asleep. His gray eyes were serious. What I'm going to tell you, it stays between us. You don't record it. Don't write it down. Don't use it in any official capacity. Agreed? Agreed. I mean it, Charlotte. This isn't about protecting myself. It's about protecting people who are still in the field, people whose lives depend on operational security. I understand. Do you? Because once I tell you, you can't unhear it, and it might not give you the closure you're looking for. It might make things worse. Charlotte held his gaze. I'm willing to take that risk. Ethan exhaled slowly. 8 o'clock. Come to the back door, not the front. And if anyone asks why you're there, you're consulting on commercial vehicle maintenance for your company. That's the story. Okay. He stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, your brother talked about you in the downtime between missions. He was proud of you, said you were tougher than anyone gave you credit for. The words settled in Charlotte's chest like warmth. Thank you for telling me that. Ethan nodded and left. Charlotte spent the rest of the day trying to work, trying to keep her mind occupied. She answered emails from her assistant, reviewed quarterly projections, participated in a conference call with the board that left everyone frustrated with her continued absence. Charlotte, we need you here, the chairman said. The Pentagon contract negotiation is stalling. They want face-to-face meetings. Then schedule them for next week. What's so important in Colorado that it can't wait? Family business, Charlotte said, and ended the call before he could press further. At 7:30, she drove through Ridge Hollow toward Ethan's house. The sun had set behind the mountains, leaving the sky streaked with purple and orange. Lights glowed in windows along Main Street, normal families having normal evenings. Charlotte parked a block away and walked to Ethan's house. The porch light was off, but she could see warm light in the upstairs window. Lily's room, probably. She went around to the back door as instructed and knocked softly. Ethan answered almost immediately. He'd showered and changed into jeans and a flannel shirt, looking less like a mechanic and more like someone preparing for something difficult. Come in, he said quietly. The kitchen was small but clean, decorated with Lily's artwork on the refrigerator and a calendar marked with school events. Through the doorway, Charlotte could see a living room with worn furniture and shelves full of children's books. This was a home, not just a house, a place built with care and intention. Ethan gestured to the kitchen table. Coffee? Please. He poured 2 mugs and sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan began. The mission was supposed to be a simple extraction. High-value intelligence source needed to get out before his cover was blown. We went in at night, 6 of us, including your brother. Andrew was team lead. Charlotte listened without interrupting, letting him find his rhythm. The source had information about planned attacks on U.S. installations, time-sensitive intelligence that could save hundreds of lives. But when we arrived at the rendezvous point, it was a setup. The source had been compromised. They were waiting for us. Ethan's hands wrapped around his coffee mug, knuckles white. We took heavy fire immediately. RPGs, automatic weapons, the works. Andrew made the call to split the team. He took 2 guys to provide covering fire, while I took the other 2 to extract a group of civilians who'd been caught in the crossfire. Women and children from a nearby compound. Why civilians? Because they were there. Because leaving them meant they'd be used as hostages or killed to send a message. Because that's what Andrew was, someone who didn't abandon people just because the mission went sideways. Charlotte felt tears building but held them back. I argued with him, Ethan continued. Told him we should stay together, fight our way out as a unit. But he pulled rank. Ordered me to get those civilians to the extraction point 2 clicks north. Said he'd hold the position and meet us there. Did he? No. Ethan's voice went flat. The civilians were terrified, didn't speak English, didn't understand we were trying to help. It took precious minutes to get them moving, to convince them we weren't the enemy. By the time we reached the extraction point, the firefight behind us had intensified. What did you do? I called for air support, requested immediate evac for the civilians. Then I gave my rifle to one of my teammates and told him to take them out on the chopper. I went back for Andrew. Charlotte's breath caught. You went back? I ran 2 clicks through hostile territory, alone, no backup. By the time I reached the compound, the shooting had stopped. I found 2 bodies from our team. Neither was Andrew. I searched for 3 hours, called his name, checked every building, every vehicle. Nothing. What about the other man on his team? Died holding the line with him. I found his body next to a barricade they'd constructed. But not Andrew's. Not Andrew's. Ethan met her eyes. When the recovery team arrived at dawn, they did a full sweep, collected our fallen, documented the scene, but your brother wasn't there. No body, no blood trail, no gear. Charlotte's mind raced. That means he could have escaped, could have been taken prisoner. Or it means his body was moved, taken as a trophy, buried somewhere we didn't find. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. Charlotte, I know what you're hoping for, but the most likely explanation is that he was killed and his remains were disposed of in a way we couldn't track. You don't know that for certain. No, I don't, and that's what's haunted me for 3 years. The not knowing, the possibility that he was alive somewhere, waiting for rescue that never came. The chance that I could have saved him if I'd made a different choice. Charlotte reached across the table, her hand covering his. You made the choice he ordered you to make. You saved those civilians. 11 people, Ethan said. 4 women, 7 children. They made it out because I followed orders. But every day since, I've wondered if Andrew made it because I didn't. They sat in the quiet kitchen, the weight of 3 years pressing down between them. Finally, Charlotte spoke. Is there any evidence he was taken prisoner? Any intelligence? Ethan hesitated. There were rumors. Unconfirmed reports of an American being held by a faction operating across the border. But intelligence like that comes in constantly. Most of it is false. People trying to trade information for money or favors. But some of it could be real. Charlotte, I need to know, Ethan, if there's even a chance I need to pursue it. And if pursuing it gets you hurt, gets you killed, what does that accomplish? It means I tried. It means I didn't give up on him the way everyone else did. Ethan pulled his hand back. The military didn't give up. They conducted extensive searches, pursued every credible lead. But eventually, you have to accept the reality of limited resources and diminishing returns. You can't keep searching forever. Why not? Because forever is a long time to carry hope that's killing you. The words hung between them, heavy with personal experience. Charlotte looked at him carefully. Is that what happened to you? You carried hope until it killed the person you used to be? I carried guilt, still do, but I learned that you can't survive on guilt alone. Eventually, you have to find something else to live for. He glanced toward the stairs where Lily slept. I found mine. And you think I should find mine? Let Andrew go and move on? I think you should decide what kind of life you want. One where you're always looking backward, or one where you can actually move forward. Charlotte stood, pacing to the window. Outside, the mountains were dark silhouettes against the night sky. I can't move forward with this question hanging over me. I need to know if he's alive. Even if knowing destroys you? Even then. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, there's someone who might be able to help. A guy I served with, Marcus Rivera. He stayed in, made it to Master Sergeant. Last I heard, he was working intelligence analysis at Fort Bragg. Charlotte turned. He'd have access to the reports, the classified intelligence? Possibly, but reaching out to him means breaking my silence. It means people asking questions about why I'm suddenly interested in a 3-year-old mission. It means attention I've spent years avoiding. I'm not asking you to risk your safety or Lily's. Aren't you? Because that's exactly what you're asking, even if you don't realize it. Ethan stood as well. The people we operated against, they have long memories. If word gets out that someone's investigating that mission, if the wrong people connect the dots back to me, I'll protect you. With what? Money? Lawyers? Charlotte, the world I came from doesn't respect those things. It respects power and violence and the willingness to use both without hesitation. Then teach me, Ethan blinked. What? Teach me how to protect myself, how to think like you do, how to operate in that world. Charlotte's voice was steady. I'm not stupid. I know I'm out of my depth, but I'm also not helpless. Give me the tools to do this safely. You're serious. Completely. Ethan studied her face, looking for doubt or bravado. He found only determination. You have no idea what you're asking. Then explain it to me. The world I operated in, it changes you. It teaches you to see threats everywhere, to trust no one completely, to make decisions that haunt you forever. You think you want that knowledge, but you don't. What I want is to find my brother. If learning to think like a soldier helps me do that, then yes, I want it. Ethan walked to the kitchen counter and picked up his phone. He stared at it for a long time. Then he pulled up a contact he clearly hadn't called in years. I'll reach out to Marcus, see if he can dig up anything concrete about those prisoner rumors. But Charlotte, you need to understand, if this goes wrong, if this brings danger to Ridge Hollow or to Lily, I will end it. Immediately. No discussion. Fair enough. And you do exactly what I tell you. No arguments, no creative interpretation. This isn't a boardroom where you can negotiate terms. Understood. He typed out a message, hesitated, then sent it. Done. Marcus is 3 hours ahead. If he's still the same guy, he'll respond within the hour. They waited in tense silence. Charlotte sat back down at the table while Ethan paced the kitchen like a caged animal. Every few minutes, he'd glance at his phone, then at the stairs, making sure Lily was still asleep. 37 minutes later, the phone buzzed. Ethan grabbed it, read the message, and his expression darkened. He wants to video call, secure channel. Give me a minute to set it up. He disappeared into what looked like a small office off the living room. Charlotte heard him moving around, then the sound of a laptop booting up. He returned a few minutes later and gestured for her to follow. The office was sparse. Desk, chair, filing cabinet. But on the desk sat a laptop with encryption software running. A video call was connecting. The screen flickered and a man appeared. Late 30s, Latino, with a scar running through his left eyebrow and eyes that had seen too much. He smiled when he saw Ethan, but it was a tired smile. Spectre. Been a while, brother. Too long, Rivera. How you been? Breathing. You? Same. Marcus's eyes shifted to Charlotte. Who's your friend? Charlotte Bennett, Andrew's sister. The smile vanished. Marcus leaned back, understanding flooding his expression. Ah, so that's why you're crawling out of your cave. She wants to know what happened. Wants to know if there's any chance he's alive. Marcus looked at Charlotte for a long moment. Miss Bennett, I'm sorry for your loss. Your brother was one of the best men I ever served with. But you need to understand— I've heard what I need to understand, Charlotte interrupted. What I need now is information. Ethan said there were rumors about an American prisoner. There are always rumors. Were any of them credible? Marcus glanced at Ethan, who nodded slightly. There was one. About 8 months after the mission, source claimed to have seen an American being moved across the border, matched Andrew's general description. But the source was unreliable. History of providing false intel for payment. What happened to the lead? It was investigated. Signals intelligence found nothing. Satellite imagery didn't show any unusual movement. The source disappeared before he could be questioned further. Case went cold. Charlotte felt her chest tighten. That's it? That's it. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett. I know it's not what you wanted to hear. What about recent intelligence? Anything in the last year? Marcus hesitated, and Charlotte saw something flicker in his eyes. Why do you ask? Because if my brother is being held somewhere, he's been there for 3 years. Someone, somewhere, knows something. Intelligence gathering doesn't work like that. It's not a clean process. Most leads go nowhere. The ones that go somewhere often lead to places you don't want to find. I want to find them anyway. Marcus looked at Ethan again. She always this stubborn? You have no idea, Ethan said dryly. Look, Miss Bennett, I can do some quiet digging, see if anything new has surfaced, but I need you to understand the risks. If I start asking questions, people notice. If people notice, they start wondering why. If they start wondering why, it could compromise ongoing operations. I don't care about ongoing operations, I care about my brother. I know you do, but the men and women still in the field care about going home alive. Their safety matters too. The rebuke was gentle but firm. Charlotte felt appropriately chastened. You're right, I'm sorry, I'm just desperate. I get it. But desperation makes people reckless, and reckless gets people killed. Marcus's expression softened. Give me 2 weeks. I'll pull everything I can find on American captives in the region. If there's credible intelligence, I'll share it. But you have to promise me you won't do anything stupid with it. Define stupid. Hiring mercenaries, launching a private rescue mission, going to the media. Anything that puts operators at risk or creates an international incident. Charlotte nodded slowly. I promise. Ethan, you trust her. Ethan looked at Charlotte, really looked at her. Yeah, I do. Then I'll be in touch. Stay safe, brother. The screen went dark. Charlotte and Ethan returned to the kitchen. She felt deflated and energized at the same time. They had a lead. A thin one, barely more than smoke, but it was something. 2 weeks, she said. I can wait 2 weeks. Can you? Ethan's voice was skeptical. Because waiting is the hardest part. It's when doubt creeps in, when you start second-guessing everything. I've waited 3 years. I can wait 2 more weeks. What will you do in the meantime? Charlotte hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. Go back to Denver, I suppose. Handle work. Keep the board from staging a mutiny. Or you could stay here. She looked at him surprised. Why would I do that? Because going back to Denver means returning to normal life, to routines and responsibilities that will make the waiting harder. Here, at least you're close to the source. Close to someone who understands what you're going through. Ethan paused. And I could use the help. Help with what? The shop's been busier than usual. I'm behind on invoicing, parts ordering, customer communications. Business administration isn't my strong suit. He smiled slightly. But I'm guessing it's yours. Charlotte felt a laugh bubble up. You want me to help run your garage? Why not? You need something to occupy your mind. I need someone who knows how to manage a business. Seems like a fair trade. Ethan, I run a billion-dollar defense company. I don't think I'm qualified to manage a small-town auto shop. Money's money. Organization's organization. Besides, it would give you something to do besides staring at your phone waiting for Marcus to call. He had a point. The thought of going back to Denver, of pretending everything was normal while she waited for news, felt impossible. But staying here, being productive, learning the rhythms of this quieter life, that she could do. Okay, Charlotte said. I'll stay. I'll help. But I'm not getting under any cars. Wouldn't dream of asking you to. They smiled at each other, and for the first time since Charlotte had arrived in Ridge Hollow, the tension between them eased into something almost comfortable. I should go, Charlotte said. Let you get some rest. Ethan walked her to the back door. As she stepped outside, he spoke quietly. Charlotte? Thank you. For what? For giving me a reason to reach out to Marcus. For forcing me to stop hiding from the past. It's been 3 years of silence, and I think I needed to break it. Maybe we both did. She walked back to her Range Rover under a sky full of stars, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. The possibility that truth existed somewhere beyond the fog of uncertainty, that Andrew's story had more chapters left to tell, that the end might be different than everyone assumed. And if that possibility turned out to be real, Charlotte would move heaven and earth to bring her brother home, whatever it took, however long it required, because that's what family did. They didn't give up. They didn't surrender to the easy comfort of acceptance. They fought. And Charlotte Bennett had only just begun to fight. The next morning, Charlotte showed up at Ridge Hollow Auto Repair at 8 o'clock sharp, carrying 2 coffees from Millie's and a leather portfolio that looked comically out of place against the grease-stained concrete. Ethan was already under the hood of a Chevy Tahoe, but he straightened when he heard her heels click across the floor. His expression was somewhere between amused and bewildered. "You're actually serious about this," he said. "I don't make offers I don't intend to keep." Charlotte handed him one of the coffees. "Where's your office?" "That's a generous term for it." He gestured toward a small room that looked more like a storage closet with a desk. Papers were stacked haphazardly, invoices mixed with parts. Catalogs mixed with what looked like coloring pages from Lily. An ancient desktop computer sat in the corner, monitor yellowed with age. Charlotte surveyed the chaos with the clinical eye of someone who'd reorganized entire corporate departments. "When was the last time you reconciled your accounts?" "Reconciled?" "Balanced your books, tracked expenses against income. Basic accounting." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "I keep the receipts, file taxes once a year. That's about it." "Ethan, you could be leaving thousands of dollars on the table. Deductions you're not claiming, invoices you're not collecting on, parts you're over-ordering because you don't have inventory tracking." "I'm a mechanic, not a businessman." "Then it's a good thing I am." Charlotte set down her coffee and rolled up her sleeves. "Show me everything, every receipt, every invoice, every parts order from the last 6 months." What followed was an education in contrasts. Ethan's mechanical work was meticulous, every repair documented, every part cataloged by vehicle. But his business operations were held together with duct tape and hope. He had customers who hadn't paid in months, suppliers charging him premium rates because he didn't negotiate, and no system for tracking which jobs were profitable versus which ones cost him money. By noon, Charlotte had created a spreadsheet that made Ethan's eyes glaze over. "You're telling me I'm losing money on oil changes? You're charging $30 and spending 45 minutes per vehicle. That's below minimum wage for your time, not counting overhead." Charlotte highlighted another column. "But your transmission work is highly profitable. You should be marketing that more aggressively." "I don't market. People come when they need help. People come when they know you exist. You don't even have a website." "I have a sign." Charlotte smiled despite herself. "Welcome to the 21st century, Ethan. Let me handle the business side. You focus on the cars." They worked through lunch, Charlotte organizing chaos into order while Ethan moved between vehicles. Around 2 o'clock, Lily's school bus pulled up outside. The little girl burst through the door with her usual enthusiasm. "Daddy, Charlotte, you're both here." She dropped her backpack and ran to her art corner. "Can I show Charlotte my new drawing?" "After homework, Peanut," Ethan called from under a Honda Civic. "But Daddy, homework first, that was the rule." Lily sighed dramatically, but pulled out her workbooks. Charlotte found herself helping with math problems while simultaneously emailing Ethan's suppliers to renegotiate terms. The juxtaposition was surreal. One moment explaining fractions to a 7-year-old, the next threatening to take business elsewhere if they didn't offer a bulk discount. By the time Ethan closed the shop at 6, Charlotte had streamlined his invoicing system, set up automatic payment reminders, and identified 3 customers who owed him a combined $4,000. "You did all that in one day?" Ethan stared at the organized files on his computer screen. "I've managed Pentagon contracts. Your shop is relatively simple." Charlotte stretched, feeling muscles protest from sitting in a chair designed for someone half her height. "Tomorrow I'll work on your marketing strategy." "I don't need a marketing strategy." "Everyone needs a marketing strategy. You're the best mechanic in 3 counties according to Deb, but half the county doesn't know you exist." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, "Why are you really doing this?" "Doing what?" "This. Helping me. You could be in Denver running your empire. Instead, you're here fixing my accounting and explaining fractions to my daughter." Charlotte considered the question honestly. "Because waiting is excruciating. Because I need to feel useful, and because maybe helping you is a way of honoring what Andrew would have wanted. He always believed in taking care of the people who mattered. I mattered to him? You all did. His team. He talked about you guys like brothers. Charlotte's voice softened. He said Spectre was the most reliable man he'd ever served with, that if he was ever in trouble, you'd be the first person he'd want watching his back. Ethan turned away, but not before Charlotte saw the emotion flash across his face. He was wrong about that. Was he? You went back for him, alone, through hostile territory. That sounds pretty reliable to me. I didn't find him. You tried. That's what matters. They stood in the quiet shop, the weight of absent brothers pressing down on them both. Then Lily called from the office, breaking the moment. Daddy, I'm hungry. Then let's get you fed, Peanut. Ethan glanced at Charlotte. You eaten? Not since breakfast. There's a decent pizza place in town. Nothing fancy, but it's hot and fast. Sounds perfect. 20 minutes later, they were squeezed into a booth at Marco's Pizza, Lily chattering between them about her day while they waited for their order. The restaurant was small and loud, filled with families and teenagers, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. Several people waved to Ethan. A few eyed Charlotte with undisguised curiosity. Small-town radar in full effect. So Charlotte, Lily said, drawing her attention back, are you going to stay in Ridge Hollow forever? Lily, Ethan started. What? I'm just asking. Charlotte smiled. I don't know yet, sweetheart. I'm here for now. Is that okay? It's great. Daddy needs help. He's really good at fixing cars, but really bad at paperwork. Lily, Ethan's tone carried a warning. Well, you are. You always complain about it. Complaining and announcing it to the world are different things. Charlotte laughed. It's okay. She's not wrong. Their pizza arrived, and the conversation shifted to safer topics. Lily dominated with stories about her friends, her teacher, a field trip coming up to a nature center. She had her father's eyes, but none of his guardedness. Every emotion played across her face with transparent honesty. Watching them together, Charlotte felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name. Not jealousy exactly, more like longing for a simplicity she'd never had. Her childhood had been boarding schools and trust fund managers, summer camps in Switzerland and winter breaks in Aspen. Privileged, but hollow. Lily had less materially, but infinitely more of what actually mattered. Charlotte? Lily was looking at her expectantly. Sorry, what? I asked if you have any kids. No, I don't. Why not? Lily, that's personal, Ethan said quietly. It's okay. Charlotte took a sip of her soda. I guess I've been too busy with work. Haven't found the right person or the right time. You should find them. You'd be a good mom. You're nice and you're smart and you help with math. The simple endorsement from a 7-year-old hit harder than Charlotte expected. Thank you, Lily. That's very sweet. Do you have any brothers or sisters? The question landed like a gut punch. Charlotte felt Ethan tense across the table, but Lily was oblivious, innocently waiting for an answer. I had a brother, Charlotte said carefully. He's not around anymore. Did he die? Lily, that's enough questions, Ethan said firmly. But I want to know enough. The little girl subsided, sensing she'd crossed a line she didn't understand. The rest of the meal passed in quieter conversation, and when they left Marco's, the easy warmth had been replaced by something heavier. Ethan walked Charlotte to her Range Rover while Lily climbed into his truck. I'm sorry about that. She doesn't understand boundaries yet. She's 7. She's supposed to ask questions. Charlotte managed a smile. It's fine. Really. You sure? I'm sure. But driving back to the motel, Charlotte felt the weight of Andrew's absence more acutely than she had in weeks. Being around Lily and Ethan, seeing their small, perfect life, reminded her of everything her family had lost. The holidays that would always be incomplete. The nephew or niece Andrew would never have. The version of her mother who'd died 3 years ago along with her hope. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant. Board meeting moved to Monday. They want you on video at minimum. Charlotte typed back, I'll be there. She spent the weekend working remotely, video conferencing with her executive team while secretly organizing Ethan's business on a second screen. The cognitive dissonance was dizzying. One moment discussing defense contracts worth hundreds of millions, the next figuring out the most cost-effective way to order brake pads. On Monday morning, she dressed in a blazer and professional makeup for the board meeting, setting up her laptop at the motel's tiny desk. When the video call connected, 12 faces appeared on screen, all wearing varying degrees of disapproval. "Charlotte, good of you to join us," the chairman said dryly. "Thank you, Richard. I know my absence has been inconvenient." Inconvenient is an understatement. The Pentagon is threatening to withdraw from negotiations if you don't return to the table personally. They don't trust delegation on a contract this size. Then tell them I'll be back next week. Next week? Charlotte, this is a $400 million contract. It needs to be finalized now. And it will be. But I have personal matters that require my attention for a few more days. The CFO leaned forward. With all due respect, what personal matters are worth jeopardizing the company's largest deal of the year? Charlotte met his gaze through the screen. Family matters, and that's all I'm willing to say. We deserve more than that. No, you deserve competent leadership, which I've provided for 5 years without interruption. I'm asking for 1 week. I think I've earned it. The silence that followed was tense. Finally, Richard spoke. 1 week, Charlotte. Then you're back in Denver, full-time, or we'll need to have a different conversation about your role here. Understood. The call ended, leaving Charlotte staring at a reflection in the blank screen. She'd just put her career on the line for a hope that might be nothing more than smoke. But what was the alternative? Abandon the search? Return to Denver and pretend Andrew had never existed? Bury herself in work and let the questions eat her alive? No, she'd made her choice. She had 6 days before Marcus called with whatever intelligence he could find. 6 days to wait and hope and prepare for whatever came next. Charlotte changed out of her blazer and drove to the auto shop. Ethan was working on a Ford F-150, but he looked up when she entered. "Thought you might take the day off. It's Monday. Surely even mechanics get weekends." "I worked all weekend. Figured I'd rather be here than staring at motel walls." "Your board meeting go okay?" Charlotte was surprised he'd remembered. "They're not happy, but they'll survive." "You're putting a lot on the line for this." "I know." Ethan wiped his hands on a rag. "You ever wonder if it's worth it? If Andrew would want you sacrificing everything to find him?" "Every day. But then I remember that he sacrificed everything for people he didn't know. For those civilians you extracted, for his team, for his country. The least I can do is risk a little professional discomfort." "Discomfort is losing a contract. What you're risking is your entire career." "My career will survive. I'm not sure I will if I give up now." They worked in companionable silence for the next few hours. Charlotte made phone calls to delinquent customers, her boardroom voice getting immediate results. By lunch, she'd collected $3,000 in overdue payments. "You're terrifying when you want to be," Ethan observed. "I prefer effective, but terrifying works too." That afternoon, Lily came home from school with exciting news. "Daddy, we're having a fall festival at school on Friday. Can we go, please?" "Of course, Peanut." "Can Charlotte come too?" Ethan glanced at Charlotte, who shrugged. "If it's okay with your dad." "It's fine," Ethan said. "Fair warning, though, small-town fall festivals are pretty tame. Pumpkin carving, apple bobbing, that kind of thing." "Sounds perfect." Friday came faster than Charlotte expected. The week had fallen into a rhythm. Mornings at the shop, afternoons helping Lily with homework, evenings either alone or sharing simple dinners with Ethan and his daughter. It felt almost normal, which was both comforting and unsettling. The fall festival was held on the school grounds, the parking lot transformed with hay bales and harvest decorations. Families clustered around various stations. Face painting, beanbag toss, a baking contest. The whole town seemed to have turned out. Lily dragged them from activity to activity, her enthusiasm infectious. Charlotte found herself actually enjoying it, the simplicity of it, the way people greeted each other with genuine warmth. This was community in a way Denver's charity galas and networking events could never replicate. "Charlotte," Deb waved from the bake sale table. "Didn't expect to see you here." Lily insisted. "Well, I'm glad. You settling in okay?" "Better than expected, actually. Town'll do that to you, gets under your skin without you noticing." Deb's smile was knowing. "Ethan seems happier lately, more present. You're good for him. I'm just helping with his bookkeeping. Sure you are, hun. Before Charlotte could respond, a commotion erupted near the parking lot. Raised voices, the crowd shifting nervously. Charlotte turned to see Derek and his friends pushing through the festival, clearly drunk despite it being 3 in the afternoon. Derek's eyes were scanning the crowd, looking for something, looking for someone. His gaze landed on Charlotte and his face split into an ugly smile. Well, well, Denver Princess is still here. Guess she likes slumming it with the locals. Ethan stepped forward immediately, positioning himself between Derek and Charlotte. Derek, you're drunk. Leave. Or what? You gonna put me on the ground again? Embarrass me in front of more people? Only if you make me. Derek's friends flanked him, and Charlotte realized this could turn bad fast. Families were here, children. Lily was somewhere in the crowd, probably watching. I'm not looking for trouble, Ethan said quietly. But I won't let you ruin this festival. Walk away. You don't give me orders, mechanic. Derek! Deputy Carter appeared from the crowd, hand resting on his sidearm. You're done here. Leave now, or I'm taking you in for public intoxication. This is harassment. This is you being drunk and belligerent at a children's event. Which is it going to be? Walk away or spend the night in a cell? Derek glared at everyone, his alcohol-fueled bravado warring with basic survival instinct. Finally, he spat on the ground near Ethan's feet and stalked back toward the parking lot, his friends following. The crowd released a collective breath. Carter tipped his hat to Ethan. You all right? Fine. Thanks for the backup. That's what I'm here for. Carter's eyes found Charlotte. Miss Bennett, I'd suggest staying alert. Derek holds grudges, and he's been talking about you at the Timber Lodge. Nothing specific, but enough to be concerning. I can handle Derek. I'm sure you can, but it's easier to avoid trouble than to deal with it after it starts. He walked away, leaving Charlotte and Ethan standing in the aftermath. I should go, Charlotte said quietly. I'm causing problems for you. You're not causing anything. Derek's been a problem since long before you showed up. Ethan's voice was firm. Don't let him chase you off. But Charlotte could see the worry in his eyes. The calculation of risks, the concern for Lily, who'd witnessed another confrontation involving her father. I need some air, she said, and walked toward the edge of the school grounds where the festival gave way to open fields. She stood there for a long time, watching the mountains in the distance, feeling the weight of everything pressing down, her career hanging by a thread, her mother's patience wearing thin, her presence in Ridge Hollow bringing unwanted attention and conflict. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe she should go home, except that Andrew was gone, and rebuild the life she'd put on hold. You okay? She turned to find Ethan approaching, hands in his pockets. Where's Lily? With Deb, they're judging the pumpkin carving contest. He stood beside her, both of them facing the mountains. You're thinking about leaving. How did you know? Because I've thought about it too. Every time something reminds me of the past, every time I see that look in Lily's eyes that says she knows something's wrong even if she doesn't understand what, running is easier than staying and facing it. But you stayed. I had a reason to. Lily needs stability, needs to know at least one parent won't abandon her. Ethan glanced at Charlotte. You have reasons to stay too. Questions that deserve answers. A brother who deserves to be found, one way or another. What if I destroy everything looking for those answers? My career, your peace, my mother's sanity. What if you do? Would it be worth it if you brought Andrew home? Charlotte closed her eyes. Yes, but what if I don't? What if all I accomplish is burning everything down for nothing? Then at least you tried. At least you didn't spend the rest of your life wondering what if. Ethan's voice was gentle. The wondering is what kills you, Charlotte, not the trying. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and went completely still. What is it? Marcus. Ethan opened the message, read it quickly, and his expression transformed into something Charlotte couldn't quite read. He found something. Her heart stopped. What? New intelligence. Cross-referenced with signals intercepts from the last 6 months. There's credible evidence of an American being held in a compound 40 miles across the border. Ethan looked up, his gray eyes intense. Charlotte, he might be alive. The world tilted. 3 years of grief and hope and desperate searching. And now, are they sure? As sure as intelligence gets. Marcus says the source is reliable. Multiple confirmations. The description matches Andrew's general profile. Charlotte couldn't breathe, couldn't think. What do we do? We don't do anything. This goes to the military. They'll assess the situation and decide on a course of action. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. These things require planning, approval from multiple levels, diplomatic considerations. Months? Ethan, if he's been there for 3 years, I know, but rushing in without proper planning gets people killed. Trust the process. Charlotte shook her head. The process declared him dead. The process moved on. Why should I trust it now? Because the alternative is suicide. You can't extract a prisoner from a fortified compound with hope and determination. You need resources, manpower, intelligence, and a lot of luck. So we do nothing? We just wait while he's suffering? We do what's smart, what's strategic, what gives him the best chance of actually coming home alive. Charlotte wanted to scream, wanted to grab the phone from Ethan's hand and call Marcus herself, demand immediate action, throw her considerable resources at the problem until it bent to her will. But she could see the truth in Ethan's eyes. This wasn't a business problem she could solve with money and determination. This was war. And in war, patience wasn't weakness, it was survival. Okay, she said finally, her voice shaking. Okay, we do it right. We trust the process. But Ethan, if they say no, if they refuse to mount a rescue, then we'll figure out what comes next, together. The word hung between them like a promise. Together. Charlotte had been alone in this fight for 3 years, alone in her grief, her hope, her desperate searching. But she wasn't alone anymore, and somehow that made all the difference. They drove back to Ethan's house in silence, the fall festival forgotten behind them. Lily chattered from the back seat about the pumpkin she'd carved, oblivious to the seismic shift happening in the front seat. Charlotte's hands trembled as she gripped her phone, reading and rereading Marcus's message, as if the words might change. When they arrived, Ethan guided Lily inside with gentle instructions about washing up for dinner. Charlotte stood in the driveway, staring at the mountains that had become familiar over these past weeks, trying to process what this meant. Andrew might be alive. After 3 years of might be dead, the flip to might be alive felt like standing on a cliff edge. One wrong step and she'd fall into hope so deep it could drown her. Ethan emerged a few minutes later. Lily's watching a movie. We can talk. They sat on his back porch, the October evening turning cold around them. Ethan pulled up the full message from Marcus on his phone and handed it to Charlotte. She read slowly, absorbing every detail. Intelligence from multiple sources. Signals intercepts mentioning an American prisoner. Satellite imagery showing a fortified compound in a region known for holding high-value captives. A description that matched Andrew's height, build, and approximate age. But then, the devastating caveat: assessment is preliminary, confirmation impossible without direct observation. Recommend formal channels for validation and potential extraction planning. Formal channels, Charlotte said bitterly. The same formal channels that declared him dead 3 years ago. The same ones that have the resources to actually get him out if he's really there. And if they decide it's not worth the risk, if they say one prisoner doesn't justify the operational exposure, Ethan's silence was answer enough. Charlotte stood, pacing the small porch. Her mind was already racing through alternatives, calculating resources, weighing options. I could hire a private military contractor. There are companies that specialize in extractions. Mercenaries. Security consultants. Charlotte, no, absolutely not. Why not? I have the money. I have the connections. I could assemble a team within a week. And then what? You launch an unauthorized military operation into sovereign territory? Start an international incident? Get people killed, including possibly your brother, because you're too impatient to let the professionals handle it? The professionals abandoned him. The professionals made a tactical decision based on available intelligence. You don't know what constraints they were operating under, what other priorities took precedence, what political considerations. I don't care about political considerations. Charlotte's voice rose. He's my brother. He's been held prisoner for 3 years while politicians debated risk assessments and diplomatic consequences. How is that acceptable? It's not. But neither is getting him killed because you couldn't wait for proper planning. Charlotte wanted to argue, wanted to rage against the unfairness of bureaucracy and caution and measured response, but she could see the steel in Ethan's eyes. He'd been where Andrew was. He understood the stakes in a way she never could. "So what do we do?" she asked quietly. "We push through the right channels, hard. I'll have Marcus submit the intelligence through official pathways. You use your connections at the Pentagon to make sure it gets prioritized. We make enough noise that they can't ignore it. And if that doesn't work, then we reassess. But Charlotte, you need to understand, if you go rogue on this, if you hire contractors and launch some half-planned rescue mission, you won't just be risking Andrew's life. You'll be risking everyone involved. And you'll burn every bridge you have with the government. They'll never help you again." He was right. She hated it, but he was right. Charlotte pulled out her phone and started composing an email to her Pentagon liaison. "I'll make the calls tonight, pull every favor I have, make it clear this is non-negotiable." "Good." Ethan stood. "I need to get Lily dinner. You want to stay?" "No, I need to work, need to make this happen." She drove back to the motel and spent the next 4 hours on the phone. She called her Pentagon contact and made it clear that Bennett Defense Solutions' continued cooperation on current contracts depended on immediate action regarding new intelligence on a missing American soldier. She called 2 senators she'd donated to and reminded them of her support. She called a retired general who consulted for her company and asked him to make inquiries through back channels. By midnight, she'd created enough pressure that someone would have to respond. At 1 a.m, her phone rang. Pentagon liaison. "Ms. Bennett, I've been instructed to inform you that the intelligence regarding Captain Andrew Bennett has been received and is being evaluated by the appropriate departments." "How long will evaluation take?" "That depends on verification and operational planning requirements." "Give me a timeline." "I can't do that." "Then let me be clear. Every day that intelligence sits on someone's desk waiting for evaluation is a day my brother spends in captivity. I expect movement within 72 hours, or Bennett Defense Solutions will be reevaluating all current and future contracts with the Department of Defense." The silence on the other end was heavy. Ms. Bennett, threatening to withdraw from defense contracts because of a personal matter, could be seen as a CEO exercising her company's prerogative to work with partners who share her values. One of those values is not abandoning American soldiers. If the Pentagon doesn't share that value, we should probably reconsider our relationship. Another pause. "I'll convey your concerns to the appropriate parties." "You do that. And tell them I expect a briefing within 48 hours, in person." She hung up before he could argue. The next morning, Charlotte woke to 17 missed calls and twice as many emails. The board was in full panic mode. The Pentagon was furious. Her mother had somehow gotten wind of something and was demanding explanations. Charlotte ignored all of it and drove to the auto shop. Ethan took one look at her face and poured coffee. "You kicked the hornet's nest." "I did more than kick it. I set it on fire. And now we wait to see if they respond with action or retaliation." Charlotte accepted the coffee gratefully. "How's Lily?" "Confused about why you weren't here yesterday afternoon. She wanted to show you her pumpkin." Guilt twisted in Charlotte's chest. "I'm sorry, I should have. You were fighting for your brother. She'll understand when she's older." Ethan sat across from her at the small office desk. "But Charlotte, you need to be prepared for the possibility that this doesn't end the way you want." "I know." "Do you?" "Because I've seen what happens when hope gets crushed. I've lived it, and I'm worried about what it'll do to you if this falls apart." Charlotte met his eyes. 3 years ago, I made a promise to my brother, not out loud, but in my heart. I promised I wouldn't stop looking, wouldn't stop fighting. If this falls apart, at least I'll have kept that promise. And if it succeeds? If we actually get him back? Then I'll have my brother, and my mother will have her son, and maybe we can all start healing. What about you and me? The question caught Charlotte off guard. What about us? Ethan looked uncomfortable, like he'd said more than he intended. I mean, you've built a life here these past weeks, helped with the shop, spent time with Lily. But that was while you were waiting. If Andrew comes home, you'll go back to Denver, back to your real life. Charlotte realized he was right. She'd been so focused on finding Andrew that she hadn't thought about what came after, about returning to the penthouse and the boardroom and the endless cycle of contracts and negotiations, about leaving Ridge Hollow and its quiet rhythms, about leaving Ethan and Lily. "I don't know what happens after," she admitted. "I haven't let myself think that far ahead." "Maybe you should start." Before Charlotte could respond, her phone rang. Pentagon liaison. "Ms. Bennett, you have your briefing. Tomorrow, 1000 hours, at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs. Bring identification. Come alone." "I want my consultant present." "That's not—" "His name is Ethan Cross, former Master Sergeant. He has the necessary clearances and first-hand knowledge of the mission in question. He's essential personnel." A long pause. "Fine. But, Ms. Bennett, I'd advise you to moderate your approach during this meeting. You've made powerful people very unhappy." "Good. Maybe unhappy will motivate them to act." She hung up and looked at Ethan. "Tomorrow, Colorado Springs. They're briefing us on the intelligence." "Us?" "I told them you're coming. Hope that's okay." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "I'll need to arrange care for Lily. Deb might be able to take her for the day." "Thank you for doing this, for helping me." "You don't need to thank me. Andrew was my brother too, maybe not by blood, but where it counted." Ethan's voice was rough. "If there's a chance to bring him home, I'm in, whatever it takes." The next morning, they left Ridge Hollow before dawn. Ethan had dropped Lily at Deb's house with a vague explanation about business meetings. The drive to Colorado Springs took 90 minutes, the silence between them heavy with anticipation and dread. Peterson Space Force Base sat on the eastern edge of the city, all chain-link fences and security checkpoints. Charlotte showed her ID, and after a tense verification process, they were escorted to a nondescript building deep in the complex. The briefing room was small and windowless. 3 people waited inside. A colonel Charlotte didn't recognize, her Pentagon liaison looking deeply uncomfortable, and a woman in civilian clothes who had intelligence analyst written all over her. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Cross?" The colonel gestured to seats. "I'm Colonel Matthews. This is Dr. Sarah Chen from DIA. I understand you've been making considerable noise about intelligence regarding Captain Andrew Bennett." "I have," Charlotte said evenly, "and I expect to see that intelligence." "Before we proceed, I need you to understand something. What we're about to show you is highly classified. It cannot be shared, discussed, or acted upon outside of official channels. Violating that understanding would constitute a federal crime. Are we clear?" "Crystal." Matthews nodded to Dr. Chen, who pulled up a presentation on the screen at the front of the room. 2 weeks ago, we received signals intelligence indicating an American prisoner being held at this location. A satellite image appeared, showing a compound surrounded by high walls. The compound is operated by a militant faction with ties to the group responsible for the ambush 3 years ago. Charlotte leaned forward, heart pounding. Chen continued. Subsequent monitoring captured communications mentioning the American captain in connection with this site. Voice analysis of one intercept produced a partial match to Captain Bennett's vocal profile from archived recordings. "Partial match?" Ethan's voice was sharp. "How partial?" 73% confidence. The audio quality was poor and we're working with limited comparison data. But it's within the threshold we consider actionable. Matthews took over. "Here's the situation. The compound is in hostile territory. Any extraction would require a significant operational commitment. Helicopters, ground forces, air support. It's high risk with no guarantee of success." "But it's possible," Charlotte said. "It's possible, but it requires approval from multiple levels, including the Joint Chiefs and potentially the White House. That approval is not guaranteed." "Why not?" "Because military operations aren't conducted based on possibility, Ms. Bennett. They're conducted based on strategic value, risk assessment, and probability of success. One prisoner, no matter how much we'd like to bring him home, has to be weighed against operational security, diplomatic considerations, and the lives of the operators we'd be sending in." Charlotte felt her temper rising. "You're saying my brother isn't worth the risk." "I'm saying the decision isn't mine to make, and it won't be swayed by emotional appeals or corporate pressure." "Then what will sway it?" Matthew studied her for a long moment. Proof. Definitive confirmation that Captain Bennett is at that location and alive. Right now we have strong indicators, but indicators aren't certainty. If you want this operation approved, we need certainty. How do we get that? We don't. We wait for additional intelligence, another intercept, visual confirmation, something that removes the doubt. How long? Weeks, possibly months. Charlotte stood abruptly. Unacceptable. Bennett, you're telling me my brother might be alive, might be 40 miles from freedom, and you want me to wait months for bureaucrats to feel certain enough to act? While he suffers? While his captors potentially move him, or worse? I'm telling you that launching a military operation based on incomplete intelligence is how we get our people killed. Patience isn't cruelty, it's prudence. Charlotte turned to Ethan, desperate for support, and found him staring at the satellite image with an expression she couldn't read. Ethan? He didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the compound, scanning the layout with the focus of someone seeing something others missed. Mr. Cross? Matthews prompted. This compound. Ethan's voice was distant. I've seen it before. The room went silent. What do you mean? Chen asked carefully. 3 years ago, during the mission when Andrew went missing. We moved through this area during extraction. This compound was flagged as a possible hostile site, but not confirmed. Ethan pointed to a section of the wall. There was a breach here, small arms fire damage. We reported it in our debrief. Matthews and Chen exchanged glances. Chen typed rapidly on her laptop, pulling up files. You're right. The after-action report mentions a damaged compound matching this location, but there was no indication it was being used for prisoner holding. It wasn't then, but if Andrew was captured nearby, this would be a logical place to take him, close enough to the ambush site, defensible, off the main routes. Charlotte felt hope ignite like a flame. Does that help? Does that give you enough certainty? Matthews was quiet, clearly calculating. It's additional corroboration, but it's still not definitive. What would be definitive, Buck? Ethan asked. Eyes on target, visual confirmation. Then send a reconnaissance team. That's weeks of planning. Or send someone who knows the area, someone who's been there before. Ethan's voice was steady, but Charlotte heard the undercurrent. Send me. Charlotte's heart stopped. Ethan, no. It makes sense. I know the terrain, I know the compound layout. I can get in, confirm Andrew's presence, and get out without triggering a full-scale operation. You'd be going in alone, Matthews said. No backup, no support. If you're compromised, we can't extract you. I understand the risks. Ethan, you can't do this. Charlotte grabbed his arm. You have Lily. You have a life here. You can't throw it away on a reconnaissance mission. He finally looked at her, and she saw the resolve in his eyes. Andrew went back for those civilians because it was the right thing to do. He gave me an order that saved lives. This is my chance to repay that, to finish what we started 3 years ago. By getting yourself killed? By bringing him home, or confirming he can't be brought home. Either way, you get your answer, and I get to stop living with the guilt of leaving him behind. Charlotte wanted to scream, to argue, to forbid him somehow. But she had no authority here, no leverage, and she could see in Ethan's face that he'd already made the decision. Matthews cleared his throat. Mr. Cross, if you're serious about this, we'd need to move quickly. The window for reconnaissance is narrow. You'd leave within 48 hours. I'm serious. Then we have planning to do. Matthews stood. Ms. Bennett, you're dismissed. What happens from here is operational and classified. You'll be contacted when we have results. Like hell I'm leaving. This is my brother we're talking about. And it's my operation. You've done your part by pushing the intelligence to the top. Now let us do ours. Matthew's voice softened slightly. I know this is hard, but trust that we want the same thing you do, to bring Captain Bennett home. Ethan touched Charlotte's shoulder. It's okay, I'll call you when I can. But you need to go. Ethan, trust me, please. She wanted to refuse, wanted to plant herself in that briefing room and demand to be part of every decision. But she could see it wouldn't work. This was a military operation now, and she was a civilian, an obstacle, not an asset. Charlotte let herself be escorted out of the building and back to her Range Rover. She sat in the parking lot for a long time, hands shaking on the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Ethan was going back. Back to the place where Andrew had disappeared. Back into danger he'd spent 3 years trying to escape. Because of her. Because she'd pushed and prodded and refused to let go. If he didn't come back... Charlotte couldn't finish the thought. She drove back to Ridge Hollow in a fog, barely seeing the road. When she arrived, she went straight to Deb's house to check on Lily. The little girl was playing in the backyard, laughing as Deb's husband pushed her on a tire swing. So innocent, so unaware that her father was about to risk everything. "Charlotte!" Lily ran over when she spotted her. "Where's Daddy?" "He had to stay in Colorado Springs for a meeting. He'll be home soon." "Will you stay with me until he gets back?" Charlotte's throat tightened. "Of course, sweetheart." She spent the afternoon with Lily, playing games and helping make cookies, all while her phone stayed silent. No call from Ethan, no updates from Matthews, just crushing uncertainty. That evening, after Lily was asleep in the guest room, Deb poured Charlotte a glass of wine and sat across from her at the kitchen table. "You want to tell me what's really going on?" Charlotte shook her head. "I can't. Classified." "But it's bad. It's complicated." Deb studied her face. "You're in love with him." The statement hit Charlotte like a physical blow. "What? No, I barely know him." "Honey, I've watched you two for weeks now, the way you look at each other, the way you orbit around each other like gravity. That's not barely knowing someone, that's recognizing someone." "It's not like that. I'm here about my brother." "You were here about your brother. Now you're here about Ethan too. Maybe you haven't admitted it to yourself yet, but that doesn't make it less true." Charlotte stared into her wine glass. Was Deb right? Had she fallen for the quiet mechanic with the tragic past and the beautiful daughter? Or was she just so starved for connection, so desperate for someone who understood, that she'd confused gratitude for something deeper? "It doesn't matter what I feel," Charlotte said quietly. "I'm leaving soon. Back to Denver. Back to my real life." "And what if your real life could be here? What if you're running towards something that matters less than what you're running from?" Before Charlotte could answer, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered immediately. "Hello?" "Charlotte, it's Marcus Rivera." "Is this line secure?" "As secure as a cell phone gets. What's wrong?" "Ethan's mission just got moved up. He's deploying in 6 hours. I wanted you to know because he asked me to call you if something happened to him." Charlotte's blood ran cold. "If something happened? Marcus, what aren't you telling me?" "The intelligence changed. New intercept suggests the prisoner might be moved soon. If Ethan's going to confirm identity, it has to be now. But Charlotte, you need to understand, this is a suicide mission dressed up as reconnaissance. The odds of him making it in and out are, how bad? I wouldn't take them, and I've taken some bad odds." "Then why is he doing this?" "Because he never forgave himself for leaving Andrew behind. Because he thinks this is his chance at redemption. Because he's a good man who makes terrible decisions when people he cares about are hurting." The words settled like lead in Charlotte's stomach. This was her fault. Her pushing, her refusing to let go, her demand for answers. It had led Ethan to this. "Can you stop him?" she asked desperately. "No, he's made up his mind. But you might be able to reach him. He's at a staging area about 20 miles from Peterson. I'm sending you the coordinates. If you leave now, you might catch him before he deploys." Charlotte was already moving, grabbing her keys, rushing toward the door. "Send them. I'm on my way." She made the 90-minute drive in 70, her Range Rover pushing speeds that would have gotten her arrested under normal circumstances. The coordinates Marcus sent led to a private airfield on the outskirts of Colorado Springs, the kind of place that didn't officially exist on any maps. Security stopped her at the gate, but she dropped enough names and made enough threats that they finally called someone with authority. 10 minutes later, Colonel Matthews appeared, looking both annoyed and resigned. "Ms. Bennett, you can't be here." "Where is he?" "That's classified." "Colonel, please, I just need 5 minutes. Just let me talk to him before he leaves." Matthews studied her face, seeing something there that made him sigh. 5 minutes, and then you leave. Understood?" "Understood." He led her across the tarmac to a hangar where several vehicles were being prepped. Inside, Ethan was going through equipment checks with 2 other operators, his movements practiced and efficient. He looked up when Charlotte entered, surprise flashing across his face. "Charlotte, how did you—" "Marcus called me. Told me you're deploying early." She crossed to him, ignoring the curious looks from the other operators. "Tell me this is insane. Tell me you're not actually doing this." "I have to." "No, you don't. You have a daughter who needs you, a life that you've built. You don't have to throw it away for my brother." "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm trying to make it right." "It was already right. You followed orders. You saved those civilians. You did everything you were supposed to do." "I left him behind." "He ordered you to." "And I should have disobeyed." Ethan's voice rose, then dropped again as he glanced at the others. He pulled Charlotte aside, away from listening ears. "For 3 years I've played that mission over and over, every decision, every second. And every time I come back to the same question, what if I'd refused? What if I'd stayed with him instead of following orders? Then those civilians would have died. And probably you too. Maybe, but at least I wouldn't be haunted by wondering if I could have saved him." Charlotte grabbed his vest, forcing him to look at her. "And what about Lily? What happens to her if you don't come back? Who's going to read her bedtime stories and help with her homework and teach her that the world is safe? Who's going to be her father?" The question hit home. Charlotte could see it in the way Ethan's jaw tightened, the way his eyes flickered with doubt. "Deb will take care of her. I've already arranged—" "Deb can't replace you. Nobody can. You're her whole world, Ethan, and you're about to risk leaving her orphaned because you can't forgive yourself for surviving. This isn't about survival. It's about honor." "Honor?" Charlotte's voice broke. "Honor is keeping your promises. You promised Lily you'd always come home. You promised her she'd never be alone. Are you really willing to break that promise for a mission that might not even succeed?" Ethan pulled away, turning toward the equipment laid out on the table. Body armor, night vision, weapons, all the tools of a trade he'd tried to leave behind. "If I don't go, if I let this chance pass, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if Andrew was there, if I could have confirmed it, if I could have brought him home. And if you go and don't come back, I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I got you killed, that I pushed so hard for answers that I destroyed the man who tried to help me find them." Charlotte moved around to face him again. "I can live with not knowing about Andrew. I've done it for 3 years. But I can't live with knowing I sent you to your death. Please, don't do this." For a long moment, Ethan just looked at her. She could see the war happening behind his eyes. Duty versus love, honor versus survival, the past versus the future. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have said weeks ago." "What?" "These past weeks, having you in Ridge Hollow, working beside you at the shop, watching you with Lily, it's been the first time in 3 years I've felt like a person instead of a ghost. You made me remember that there's more to life than guilt and penance. That maybe I deserve to be happy again." Charlotte's breath caught. "But I can't be happy, can't move forward until I close this chapter, until I know for certain what happened to Andrew. And if there's even a chance he's alive, I have to try. Not just for you, for me, so I can finally let go of the weight I've been carrying. What if letting go means dying? Then at least I'll die doing something that matters. Something that honors the man Andrew was and the sacrifice he made." Ethan touched her face gently. "But Charlotte, if I do come back, if I make it out of this, I want to talk about what comes next. For you, for me, for us." The word hung between them like a promise neither had dared to make. "There's an us?" Charlotte asked, her voice shaking. "I think there could be, if you want there to be." "Ethan, 2 minutes," someone called from across the hangar. "We're wheels up in 2 minutes." Ethan stepped back, his hand falling away from her face. "I have to go. But Charlotte, take care of Lily. If something happens, make sure she knows I loved her. That I didn't leave because I wanted to. That everything I did was to make the world safer for her." Charlotte grabbed his hand, holding tight. "You come back. You hear me? You come back and tell her yourself. You come back and we figure out what this us means. You come back." He squeezed her hand once, then pulled away and moved toward the waiting helicopter. Charlotte stood there, watching as he boarded, as the rotors began to spin. as the aircraft lifted into the night sky. She stood there long after it disappeared from view, tears streaming down her face, praying to forces she didn't believe in that this wouldn't be the last time she saw him. Matthews approached quietly. "Miss Bennett, you need to leave now." "How long until we know something?" 48 hours. Maybe less if things go wrong. And if they do go wrong? Then we'll have lost a good man trying to save another good man. That's the nature of what we do." Matthew's voice was kind but firm. "Go home, be with his daughter, and hope for the best." Charlotte drove back to Ridge Hollow as dawn broke over the mountains. She parked outside Deb's house and sat there for a long time, trying to compose herself before facing Lily. When she finally went inside, the little girl was awake, eating cereal at the kitchen table. "Charlotte, where's Daddy?" "He had to go away for work, sweetie, but he'll be back soon." "How soon?" "A couple of days." Lily's face fell. "But he promised he'd take me to the park today." "I'll take you instead. Would that be okay?" The little girl considered this, then nodded. "Okay. But Daddy better bring me something from his trip. Last time he went away, he brought me a snow globe." Charlotte felt her throat tighten. "I'm sure he will." They spent the day at the park, Lily playing while Charlotte sat on a bench checking her phone every 30 seconds. No updates, no news, just silence that stretched like torture. That night, she put Lily to bed in Deb's guest room, reading her 3 stories because the little girl was worried and didn't want to be alone. "Charlotte," Lily asked as she was finally drifting off, "is Daddy okay?" "Yes, sweetheart. He's okay. Promise?" Charlotte swallowed hard. "I promise." It was a lie. She had no idea if Ethan was okay. He could already be dead, could be compromised, could be lying in hostile territory with no hope of rescue. But Lily needed to hear it, needed to believe her father was coming home. So Charlotte lied, and prayed she wouldn't have to confess the truth later. The next day crawled past with excruciating slowness. Charlotte handled emails from her assistant, deflected calls from the board, and tried to keep Lily entertained while her mind spun in circles of worry and dread. By evening, she was strung so tight she felt like she might shatter. Then, at 8:47 p.m., her phone rang. Matthews. Charlotte's hands shook as she answered. "Yes?" "Miss Bennett, Mr. Cross has successfully completed his reconnaissance mission. He's en route back to the staging area now." The relief was so intense Charlotte had to sit down. "He's alive?" "He's alive, banged up, but functional." "And Andrew, did he confirm?" "I'll let Mr. Cross brief you directly. He should be back at Peterson within the hour. You can meet him there if you'd like." Charlotte was already moving, grabbing her keys, rushing toward the door. "I'm on my way." She made the drive in record time, pulling into the airfield just as the helicopter was landing. She watched from behind the security fence as Ethan climbed out, moving stiffly, favoring his left side. But he was walking, he was breathing, he was alive. When security finally let her through, Charlotte ran across the tarmac and threw her arms around him. Ethan caught her, holding tight despite whatever injuries he'd sustained. "Hey, I told you I'd come back. You're hurt." "Just bruised. Nothing serious." Charlotte pulled back to look at his face. He had a cut above his eye, bruising on his jaw, and an expression that told her everything she needed to know before he said a word. "You found him," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "I found him." The world stopped. 3 years of searching, 3 years of hope and grief and desperate need, and now, is he alive? Yes. Charlotte, he's alive. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The words were too big, too overwhelming. "You're sure? You saw him?" "I got within 50 meters of the compound, used thermal imaging to confirm 2 prisoners in the interior structure. One of them matched Andrew's height and build. I couldn't get close enough for visual confirmation, but combined with the intelligence we already had," Ethan's voice was firm. "It's him. I'd stake my life on it." Charlotte felt her knees buckle. Ethan caught her, holding her upright as 3 years of suspended grief and impossible hope crashed over her like a wave. "We're getting him out," Matthews said, approaching from the helicopter. "The confirmation you provided, Mr. Cross, was exactly what we needed. I've already begun coordinating with JSOC for a full extraction operation. We'll have him home within the week. Within the week? Charlotte could barely process the words. That fast? The window is narrow. Our intelligence suggests the prisoners may be moved soon. If we're going to act, it has to be now. I've already received preliminary approval from the Joint Chiefs. The operation is a go. Charlotte looked at Ethan, saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight finally lifting from his shoulders. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. You're the one who refused to give up, who pushed when everyone else said to stop. This is your victory, Charlotte. I just confirmed what you already knew in your heart. 6 days later, Charlotte stood in a military hospital in Germany, staring through a window at a man she'd thought was dead. Andrew Bennett lay in a bed surrounded by medical equipment, thin and worn but breathing, alive. He'd been extracted 48 hours earlier in a precision operation that had gone flawlessly. 0 casualties, 0 complications, just a team of professionals doing what they did best, bringing an American soldier home. Her mother stood beside her, tears streaming down her face. My boy, my baby boy. The doctor had warned them that Andrew was weak, malnourished, and suffering from 3 years of captivity. But he was stable. He would recover. He would come home. When they were finally allowed inside, Eleanor rushed to the bed, taking her son's hand with trembling fingers. Andrew's eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then landing on his mother's face. Mom? His voice was rough, barely above a whisper. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here. Charlotte? Charlotte moved to the other side of the bed, her own tears falling freely now. I'm here too. How long? 3 years, but you're safe now. You're coming home. Andrew's eyes drifted closed. Ethan? The civilians? Everyone made it out. Everyone's okay. Good. He squeezed Eleanor's hand weakly. That's good. Charlotte stayed in Germany for a week while Andrew stabilized. Ethan flew out to join her on the 3rd day, leaving Lily with Deb. When he walked into Andrew's room, the 2 men looked at each other for a long moment. Then Andrew spoke, his voice stronger now. You followed my order. Yes, sir. Good man. Andrew's smile was weak but genuine. Knew you would. I came back for you. When the civilians were secure, I went back. But you were already gone. I know, Marcus told me. Andrew glanced at Charlotte. Told me my sister spent 3 years refusing to believe I was dead. Told me she found you, made you help her. She's persuasive, Ethan said dryly. Stubborn is what she is. Always has been. Andrew's expression grew serious. Thank you. For not giving up. For coming back. For confirming I was there so they'd mount the rescue. I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything. You gave me an order 3 years ago that saved 11 innocent people. I just returned the favor. The 2 men clasped hands, 3 years of guilt and grief and uncertainty finally resolved in that simple gesture. Later, in the hospital cafeteria, Charlotte and Ethan sat across from each other with truly terrible coffee. What happens now? Charlotte asked. Andrew gets medical care and psychological support. Probably months of rehab before he's ready to return to the States. Your mom will stay with him. I meant with us. Ethan looked at her carefully. What do you want to happen? Charlotte had spent days thinking about this question, about what her life looked like now that the search was over, now that Andrew was found, now that the all-consuming purpose that had driven her for 3 years was complete. I want to go back to Ridge Hollow, she said. I want to help you run your shop. I want to spend time with Lily. I want to figure out what this thing between us actually is without the weight of my brother's disappearance hanging over everything. You'd leave Denver, leave your company. I'd delegate. My executive team is capable. I can run strategic operations remotely and fly in for major decisions. It's the 21st century, Ethan. Geography is negotiable. What about the life you built? The power, the prestige, all of it? Charlotte smiled. I thought that's what mattered. For years, I convinced myself that success meant corner offices and billion-dollar contracts. But these past weeks in Ridge Hollow taught me something. Success is also small towns and auto shops and 7-year-olds who think you'd make a good mom. Maybe I've been climbing the wrong mountain. Charlotte, I need you to be sure, because Lily's already attached to you. I'm already... He stopped himself. You're already what? Attached. Maybe more than attached. Say it. I'm falling in love with you. The words came quiet but certain. I didn't plan it. Didn't want it. But somewhere between you disrupting my life and reorganizing my shop and making my daughter smile more than she has in years, it happened. And I need to know if you feel the same before we go any further. Charlotte reached across the table and took his hand. I feel the same. I think I have since the night you told me about the mission, since you let me see past the walls you'd built, since you showed me that broken doesn't mean unfixable. We're both pretty broken. Maybe that's why we fit. They sat there in the sterile hospital cafeteria, holding hands across terrible coffee, and for the first time in 3 years, Charlotte felt something she'd almost forgotten. Peace. Not the absence of problems or pain, but the presence of possibility. The knowledge that tomorrow wasn't something to endure or survive, it was something to build. 3 months later, Charlotte stood in the backyard of Ethan's house, watching Lily chase fireflies in the twilight. The little girl's laughter echoed across the yard, pure and joyful. Andrew was back in the States now, living with Eleanor in Denver while he continued rehabilitation. He'd visited Ridge Hollow twice, and each time Charlotte saw him getting stronger, saw the haunted look in his eyes fade a little more. Healing wasn't linear, but it was happening. Her company was thriving under her remote leadership. The board had initially protested her relocation, but eventually accepted it when quarterly earnings remained strong. It turned out that being CEO didn't require sitting in a Denver office. It required making good decisions and trusting the right people. And Ridge Hollow had embraced her. Not as the billionaire outsider, but as Charlotte, Ethan's partner, Lily's friend, the woman who'd helped bring the community's quiet mechanic back to life. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? How different everything is from a year ago. How I thought finding Andrew would be the end of the journey, but it was actually just the beginning. Any regrets? Not a single one. Lily ran over, breathless and grinning. Charlotte, did you see how many fireflies I caught? I saw. You're an excellent firefly hunter. Daddy says we can make s'mores after it gets dark. Will you help me? Of course. As Lily ran off to gather supplies, Ethan kissed Charlotte's temple. She wants to ask you something. I told her to wait until she was ready, but I think she's ready now. Ask me what? Before Ethan could answer, Lily returned with a piece of paper covered in crayon drawings. Charlotte, I made something for you. It was a family portrait, stick figures holding hands. Ethan, Lily, and a third figure with long hair and a smile. That's beautiful, sweetheart. It's us. Our family. Lily looked up with those serious gray eyes. You're a part of our family, right? Charlotte felt tears building. If you want me to be. I do. Daddy does too, so it's official. Lily threw her arms around Charlotte's waist. I love you, Charlotte. Charlotte hugged her back, looking over the little girl's head at Ethan, who was watching with an expression that held everything, love and hope and the promise of tomorrow. I love you too, she whispered. Both of you. That night, after Lily was asleep and the fireflies had faded into darkness, Charlotte and Ethan sat on the porch looking at the mountains. I talked to Andrew yesterday, Ethan said. He's being awarded the Silver Star for his actions during the mission. They're doing a formal ceremony next month. He deserves it. He said something interesting, said he'd spent 3 years as a prisoner thinking about what he'd do if he ever got out, what he'd prioritize, what really mattered. What did he decide? That life is too short to waste on regrets and guilt. That the people we love matter more than the mistakes we've made. That every day is a gift we don't get to take for granted. Charlotte understood. She'd learned the same lessons over the past year. Smart man, your captain. He also said I should ask you properly, that you deserve more than implied commitment and shared space. Charlotte turned to look at him. Ethan. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple ring. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that screamed wealth or status, just a beautiful symbol of something real. I know it's fast. I know we've only been doing this officially for 3 months. But Charlotte, I've spent 3 years barely living, and these past months with you have shown me what being alive actually feels like. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to build a life with you. I want to give Lily the mother she's already chosen. I want forever, starting now. Charlotte looked at the ring, at Ethan's hopeful face, at the house behind them where a little girl slept peacefully. She thought about corner offices and board meetings and the life she'd left behind. She thought about small-town auto shops and fall festivals and firefly hunts in the backyard. There was no comparison. Yes, she said, absolutely yes. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed in the moonlight, two broken people who'd found wholeness in each other. Inside, Lily's drawing hung on the refrigerator, a stick figure family holding hands. And for the first time in 3 years, Charlotte's world felt complete. Not because she'd found all the answers, but because she'd found something better. Home.